pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor. Okay, next is approval of agenda. The LA Community College District realizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited by the Tongva, Tatavian, Serrano, Kish, and Chumash people. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live and work and to teach and educate on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing, sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribe governments. Chancellor, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Board President Vela, members of the board, good afternoon. There's one change I'd like to make note, and that is the consent item under facilities U6. That there is a phrase at the very end of the background that should not be there. It reads TBA RACAIA, Architecture and Interior Design. It was inadvertently put into that item, so just remove that. The rest of the item is correct. So if you could remove that last clause from the background, I'd appreciate it. Everything else is slated to go as ordered. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. May I have a motion to approve the agenda with the requested amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Henderson, seconded by Eno. Roll call, please.
Student trustee Cardozo, advisory vote.
Yes.
Trustee Boulna, absent. Trustee Henderson.
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez.
Yes.
Trustee Hoffman.
Yes.
Trustee Eno.
Yes.
Trustee Vela.
Yes.
Trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Student trustee Cordova.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion and second to approve the regular board meeting and closed session minutes of August 2nd, 2023, and the special meeting minutes of August 16th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Henderson,
Second.
second by Eno. Roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote.
Yes.
Trustee Boulna, absent. Trustee Henderson.
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez. Trustee Hoffman.
Yes.
Trustee Eno.
Yes.
Trustee Vela.
Yes.
Trustee Vettis.
Thank you very much. Next are reports from representatives of employee organizations. Do any members of the resource table wish to recognize this time and make comments before the board? Please come up.
Good afternoon. First thing I want to do is talk about a ratification of our contract. We're moving to ratification of our contract. I want to thank the Chancellor and his team for all the work that you all did on that. It was a long, tough negotiation, but I think we came to a better understanding on both sides of the needs of the faculty as well as the district. I also want to thank the Board of Trustees and your support in our effort for a new contract, and we really do appreciate that as well. All right. I also want us to remember that contracts are living documents. And I say this to our members all the time, the contracts are living documents. That once we're done negotiating a contract, that doesn't mean we're actually done. One of the examples of this is the multiple MOUs that we end up having to do later on, or additions to these contracts are things that kind of adjust the contract in the moment. And what we're hoping is that we can look to doing some MOUs on the counselor differentials in the future. Okay, that is something that is near and dear to our heart. It's really important to us. It's something we've been fighting for multiple contracts. And I'm hoping that we can come to an understanding on why this is important to our members. Another thing that I think is important to our students that we weren't able to get in this contract is bilingual pay, particularly for counselors and for librarians. As we're trying to get more and more classes given to students outside of English, what would be necessary is to have librarians and counselors in those positions who can provide the services in the language of those students. It's not enough to say that we can get someone to interpret. We're not looking for interpreters. We're looking for people who can do direct service to those students. So we're hoping that we can also work on that in the near future. So I'll put that to rest and then say that our biggest thing, and some of this is tied to that, is it should be enrollments for all of us in this room. Okay, we need to look at enrollments. And I'm going to say something that we don't say out loud too often, but I've said it to several of you a few times, as well as I've said it to some of our members, that if we're going to increase enrollments, we have to increase face-to-face enrollments. You know, that's the bottom line. We can talk about increasing enrollments online, it's not going to happen. Students have had 3 years now to enroll in online classes. We've saturated the online market, okay? They're not going to take more online classes. Our only hope for increasing enrollments is going to be face-to-face, right? In order to increase these face-to-face enrollments, there's some things we're going to need to do, okay? We're going to need to find a way to get faculty to feel comfortable about taking classes on campus. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is there's a reason why chairs are hesitant to schedule more face-to-face courses. I was a chair. No one likes to schedule a course that they think there's a strong possibility it's going to get cut. No one, whether it's for full-time faculty or a part-time faculty. For full-time faculty, it may mean that they are not going to make their load that semester. And I know we say, oh, we'll work things out, but we have had some faculty already who have not made their load for several semesters and getting to the point where this could be docs and pay in the future, right? And that's where that comes down to. For our part-time faculty, this means that they are going to lose out on pay, which means that they will have trouble making their bills. They were counting on that paycheck in order to make their rents, to make their mortgages, and feed their families. If chairs do not have some sort of guarantee that those face-to-face courses are not going to get cut, they're always going to be hesitant to schedule them. And if you don't understand why, I can't understand why you can't understand why. Nobody, it's the worst call a chair ever makes, is to tell a faculty you're going to lose pay next semester because we have to cut your class. It's the worst email we make to students, because this is the thing we also don't understand about students. I've heard too many people who maybe have never done scheduling and don't understand how it works. Well, that student can just take another class at the same time period. You don't understand, if they needed my sociology 11 class to fulfill a requirement at 8 o'clock and my sociology 11 class got cut at 8 o'clock, there may not be another class at 8 o'clock that fills the requirement. So now they may be forced to go online, but what if they don't want to go online? What if they don't do well online? I would not have been that student. We need to think about this more deeply, right? And I'm really asking us to really think about this. This is not just about saving jobs. This is also about saving our campuses by providing more face-to-face classes and allowing it to grow. We really do need to allow it to grow. Another thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to provide better campus environments for our students as well. We need to increase campus life, okay? We need a vibrant campus life so that our students feel like they're doing more than just coming to a campus for classes and going home, right? They need the full college experience. I want to use the example of one of my colleagues, Angelita Rivero, okay? Angelita Rivero goes above and beyond for providing services to her students. She teaches Chicano studies. It's Latino Heritage Month, all right? And Angelita has 4 events scheduled, okay, with big name players coming into the room for our students during that month. Now, some people might think that might be too much. There's never too much student engagement. There's never too much student engagement that we could do. We need to increase the number of things that we do. And we as a union need to work with the district to make sure that that happens. A lot of these things are provided by our faculty. We need to find out how we can support our faculty and support the district in these events as we move forward. We must all work together to create a better environment for our students. That's key. Long gone are the days of old when we used to rely on the fact that we would have waiting lists of 10 to 20 students in each class, right? And that was the model. Let's be honest. It should have never been the model, but it was, okay? That our enrollments will be fine because we're over enrolled, okay? So we'll be fine. That model is gone, and now the model is people are having less children. We're getting less of a population coming here. We need to take care of each student that walks in the door. We need to make sure that each student is treated like gold. We need to think that any loss of a student is a potential loss of a campus in the future. We need to grow enrollments by not just bringing them in the door with recruitment, but retention is going to be key on how we look at these things. And then the last thing I just want to say, I want to thank the board for considering relooking at that policy that allowed you, or that board rule that allowed you to to make that adjustment in the presidential search over at Southwest College. This is important for the concept of shared governance. And I said this before, but I really want us to understand why shared governance is so important, right? Shared governance is not just about giving us a voice at the table. That's a big portion of it, all right? Shared governance is also about getting buy-in from all the different constituent groups. It wasn't just AFT 1521 that was angered by that. It wasn't just Southwest that was angered by that. It annoyed other bargaining units as well because they're also part of that shared governance process. I could see also that students in the future who put their time to be on committees like that, if they found out that that was disregarded, and well, not all of it, I won't say all of it was discarded, but someone was added in there that they didn't consider, that would be an issue for them as well, all right? And I would also say for community members too. But the biggest reason that shared governance is important, especially in cases like this, is presidents like Dr. Culpepper deserve buy-in from that community that they work in. And how do you get that buy-in? The shared governance process. If they all felt that they were part of the process, it makes his job easier, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm really glad that you are considering looking into that policy, all right, and possibly closing that loophole. I am really looking forward to moving forward as partners. I'm glad we're done with the contract portion of this, and I know we don't have to do that for 3 years again together. But I will say that I want us to move forward on making this a stronger district for our students and our communities, because that's what they deserve. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. McKeever, for your leadership in securing a very successful negotiations. I think, Los Angeles is going to benefit economically and exponentially with your work and your team's work with our negotiating team. Thank you. It means a lot. All right. Anyone else from the resource? Yes, Ms. Barajas.
Good afternoon and happy Latino Heritage Month for President Vettis, Vice President Henderson, Chancellor Rodriguez, and Board of Trustees members. I am Blanca Barajas, CMA President, and I would like to address you on 2 items this afternoon. First, on behalf of the CMA, it is my utmost pleasure to say a few words in honor of our retiring CMA colleague, Joan Grimes. We just found out that her assignment has been extended through December, so this is a little premature. But nonetheless, since Joan has been our colleague, our CMA colleague for several years, we opted to honor her today as our CMA still reflects its full membership. The LACCD has indeed been blessed to have Joan Grimes in a leadership role in payroll for the last 19 years. Her dedication and attention to detail were always amazing. Joan made sure to keep herself up to date on payroll regulations, and her capacity to quickly analyze impacts for LACCD was nothing short of phenomenal. We can all agree that her expertise will be difficult to replace. However, what stands out most to those in the CMA who regularly work with her is that she had an unerring sense of fairness and respect for all employees. Joan went well above the call of duty and put in many extra hours to ensure that not only was everyone getting paid, but that they were paid correctly and their service credit reported correctly as well. Her collaborative efforts in coordinating with different teams and stakeholders to gather information and provide valuable guidance have been integral to the success of the execution of payroll every cycle. She is one of the most resourceful employees in the district office who is more than willing to help anyone with a query. She has definitely been one of the most accessible department heads at the ESC, if not the most. Please join the CMA in congratulating the one and only Joan Grimes. And I don't know if she's here. Not here? Yes.
Yeah.
Joan is from CMA. If you're
Oh.
watching on Zoom. Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Angela. Angela Agajanian is the CalWorks Director, LA Mission College, and the CMA Vice President. Thank you, Angela. That was nice. Now, for our second item. I would like to thank those of you who responded to the CMA's update sent to all of you last week. As a result of the CMA's efforts and quest for representation, ELR conducted a comprehensive analysis of the CMA job codes. According to ELR's analysis, 56 employees coded CMA should be supervisors, 55 should be clerical technical, and 52 should be managers and or confidential employees. We are awaiting confirmation of these numbers once we receive the rubric we requested reflecting the criteria followed to recategorize these positions. We want to ensure that all classifications are placed into the correct collective bargaining units. For example, research analysts, further avoiding any district errors. According to what was communicated to us in a meeting the CMA board requested to have with district management, Rick Van Colen, ELR Director, Tiana Williams, Vice Chancellor of HR, Lisa Biggers, Director of HR, and Ron De La Jose, Personnel Commission Director, on September 6, 2023. As of October 1st, 2023, the 56 supervisors and 55 clerical technical employees will be transitioned to SEIU 721 and AFT 1521A respectively. Needless to say, we were taken aback that this was not previously communicated to us via an email or otherwise. While we appreciate the efforts, the ELR analysis has also shed light on the fact that 111 CMA employees could have been represented and participated in a collective bargaining unit. Most recently, these employees didn't receive the hero pay they rightfully would have received had they been properly classified. The realization of this fact induced a myriad of feelings for us, and it is with this notion that we implore you to hear our collective voice, that no CMA employee is adversely impacted by this transition in the form of lost benefits, pay, and that we are grandfathered into these unions retaining our differentials and with no plans to reclassify our positions in the process. In our September 6th meeting with district management, while they did tell us that they intend no one should be harmed by this transition, they would not give us specifics, referring us to have these discussions with our new bargaining representatives. Therefore, we ask that now, today, the Board of Trustees so affirm that this will not happen. CMA members will keep their differentials in a grandfathering action. We need to reassure our members who are deeply, deeply concerned about this. We ask district management that for our colleagues who will remain CMA, we trust that you will act in good faith and continue the discussion the CMA board began with you during our September 6th meeting to work together to craft a CMA employee handbook to include protections for them as they will remain unrepresented. Lastly, for the sake of nurturing an equitable LACCD workforce, we respectfully request that you treat us like we are valued and contributing members of this district. If the district makes mistakes, please show empathy and reassure us and give us your word that wrongs will be made right, because as a district, we should always want to do the right thing. To the amazing CMA board and colleagues, both active and retired, my most profound gratitude for your determination, unwavering support of each other, your uncompensated volunteer time, and your drive to do right by us all. Although most of us are gaining representation, it's not happening the way we envisioned when we began on this journey together, but we did it. I am both humbled and most proud to be in your CMA company. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barajas. So, I can't say much, but we are getting an update in closed session, and we will be discussing an update from Ms. Tiana Williams. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Ms. Echeverry, please come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm Angela Echeverry, representing the District Academic Senate. First of all, I want to thank President Vela and other trustees for ongoing discussions on revisions to Board Rule 10308, which, by the way, should have been rescinded and replaced with AP 7120. But we really appreciate those discussions. And I think they're going to go, progress on this front is going to go a long way to help us move forward. I also want to wish Southwest and its new president, Dr. Culpepper, the best of luck moving forward. and to pledge that we really care about Southwest College and we want it to be successful. I want to announce that on September 22nd, Friday, September 22nd, the District Academic Senate will participate in a joint summit. The theme of the summit is aligning curriculum and improving services to support student success. And we will have a couple of the board members, Vice President Kelsey Eno, the Chancellor, Vice Chancellor Nicole Alba Lopez, CCLC President Andra Hoffman, and Board of Governors Representative Adrian Brown will be there, as well as our keynote speakers will be Cheryl Aschenbach and Ginny May from the ASCCC, or State Academic Senate. We will be talking about legislative mandates, including AB 928, transfer reform, AB 1111, common course numbering, and I have a discussion on why curricular alignment is necessary. And we'll also talk about CalGETC, as well as give some examples of work that is being done currently in the district to align curriculum. We also have a panel that is going to be moderated by our Vice President, Jeff Hernandez, on Vision 2030 and talk about some of the efforts district-wide that are aligned with Vision 2030, including dual enrollment, climate practice, adult learners, and improved articulation. And at the end of the day, we'll talk a little bit about strategic planning and the data dashboard updates and how to get involved. So we're really excited. That is on the Vision Resource Center, and it's open to all LACCD employees. And since it's going to be a webinar, I think we have a capacity of 1,000 people. So we expect to get very good participation. So thank you to all of you who are participating in that event. I also want to mention that the Sustainable Environment Institute is going to be holding several events, including a talk on heat island and equity. And those of us who have lived in the San Fernando Valley know all about heat islands and how heat is really an equity issue, or excess heat is an equity issue. So that's going to happen on September 21st. And Marta Segura, from who is actually the Chief Heat Officer of the City of Los Angeles, will be giving a presentation. I didn't even know that was a position. The SEI is also working on climate literacy across disciplines and partnering with the California Center for Climate Education on a number of initiatives. And that is the center, of course, at Westlake. So we're very excited about that work. Finally, I just want to mention a couple of other things. On tutoring, I'm hearing that faculty are really struggling finding tutors for students. Part of the reason is because of our current tutor classifications. And part of the reason is because the law actually states that tutors have to be full-time students and currently, and that really limits our pool of eligible tutors. As you know, only a small percentage of our students are full-time students. So we would really like to work with the board to examine or explore options. How can we relax those requirements so that we can have, we can hire more tutors and serve our students better? And then finally, I just want to remind everybody that the District Academic Senate has come up with a proposed board policy on retreat rights. And we would like to, and we've been working on this for over 3 years, and we would definitely like the board to help us reach a mutual agreement in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Echeverry. Anyone else from the resource table?
I was told I'm supposed to come up here. So my name's Zukia Smith. I am the newly appointed monitor executive director for 1521A. So we had a little bit of a problem with our elections, and we're going to have to redo the election. So you will see me for as long as it takes us to get the elections done and make sure that 1521A stays a presence in this district and make sure that our classified voices are heard and things that are happening. So I'm Lucia Smith, and I'm here to help where I can.
Thank you for coming and introducing yourself. Appreciate that. All right, next is public comment. We have Nina Royal. Nina, are you here? It's regarding Coima, item X4.
President Villa, we also have Adrian Muller from the research table online. Can we have her come in?
Oh, absolutely.
thank
Yes,
you.
please. Okay, from the resource table?
Yes, resource.
Oh, okay, so.
She's on
let's go
behalf
back
of Deborah
to-
Harrington.
Got it, okay.
Hello. Good afternoon, President Vella, members of the board, and Chancellor Rodriguez. For the record, I'm Dr. Adrienne Ann Mullen, Dean and Teamster Rep for the ESC, and I'm sharing remarks prepared by Dr. Deborah Harrington, President of the Teamsters, representing our district deans, and she could not be here today. But she wanted me to share the following remarks. I'm proud and grateful to report that, as always, the amazing deans of LACCD have once more delivered. We have unanimously voted to ratify our 23 to 2026 collective bargaining agreement. Congratulations to our negotiations team for putting together an historic contract, to our members for voting to enact it. This is a tremendous step forward for our unit, affirming our commitment to placing our member power at the center of our work and harnessing this collective power to address the needs of our unit members, particularly around workload, overload, and fair compensation. We celebrate our contract victory, mindful of the workers, writers, actors, and hotel workers and others who are still out on strike, fighting to improve their wages and working conditions. It's been very gratifying to have our ratification take place just prior to the Labor Day weekend. We stand on the shoulders of so many amazing union members who have paved the way before us. In closing, I'd like to join the board and the Chancellor in honoring Mexican Independence Day and Hispanic Heritage Month. I know our unit members join in celebration of the many rich contributions and achievements of Mexican Americans, as well as honoring the many diverse cultures that comprise the rich and vast Latino communities of the greater Los Angeles area, and specifically the Los Angeles Community College District. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Are there any more on the resource table or online? All right. Okay, next is public comment. Nina Royale, I don't know if you're here in person.
No, I'm on Zoom. Thank you.
Oh, on Zoom. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm temporarily disabled, so I couldn't come in person.
No, absolutely. Please.
Okay. I would like to get any kind of decision-making regarding Mission College Satellite and Sunland Tahunga postponed to a later date, because it's not right. We were not notified of anything that was going on with the college since before COVID. The college was promised to us through the passage of Measure J, which we worked very hard, and this was in 2007. And then it was put on abatement because of the lawsuit with LACCD College with the Vandecamps problem. And since then we've gone through 4 different presidents of Mission College. And apparently there's been no real bio regarding this. So what I want to do is I want an opportunity to do a PR request for all of your files and for all of my files and be able to put them together. I'm the chairman of the Mission College Satellite in Sunland Tahunga since 2007. We've been working on this. And I do have all of my records, but I have a little problem in transmitting them. So I'm going to have to print them all and mail them to you. And excuse me, I ran, so it's a little hard for me to talk. What has happened is we've had no contact with the college since before COVID. They stopped our PR person from doing any more outreach. We lost our dean. And all during COVID, when I tried to call, I couldn't get through. And the next thing I know, I get a call from someone saying they were listening to the board, I guess it was last month, about opening Pacoima with all of the classes that we were supposed to have, and that this is going to be closed. I checked with Mission College, the owner of the building that they are currently in, and he said that the lease has been canceled. And I personally know that you were told that it was a right situation. It is not. We have not heard from anybody. And we worked hard for that. They promised us to buy the Home Depot property, former Kmart property, build a satellite on that, and then also have retail on the rest of the property that it was not being used. It's 11 acres. And it would be the first innovative affair that the college was going to have in the state, where it was going to be able to pay for itself. And we feel that we have been totally disregarded. Our area is underserved. We're about 17 miles.
Time's
from-
up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Royale. Next is Katrina Linden. Katrina?
Hello, Chair and Chancellor Rodriguez, members of the board. My name is Katrina. I know you all seen me before with the Campaign for College Opportunity, speaking on items 16, Q16 and 20. I would just really like to uplift LA Pierce College and LA Valley College for the contracts being proposed to increase student access to historically Black colleges and universities. In 2015, the community colleges and several HBCUs entered an agreement to guarantee admissions to students who successfully complete specified ADT requirements. However, this promise of the memorandum cannot be fulfilled if we're not intentionally exposing LACCD students to these prestigious universities. This year, the campaign is proud to support AB 1400 by LA's very own Isaac Bryan, which would expand meaningful aid to students seeking to pursue an HBCU education, upwards of $5,000. Now more than ever, will be key to seeing through this MOU and increasing the number of ADT students going to an HBCU, and not only for Black students, but for any students seeking an HBCU education. So in tandem, these contracts represent that the LACCDs and these individual college dedication to supporting students in reaching their college transfer goals and seeing through this promise of college success for all students. So thank you again, President Gribbins and Chair and President Aguilar for your work. And I know online colleges are doing really tremendous work to support Black students. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Linden. Next is Ms. Amon Livingston. Come up.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees, Chancellor, and the entire staff, everyone here today. My name is Omne Livingston. I'm a civil and environmental engineer, and I'm also the owner of O2 Engineering Projects and Construction Management, O2 EPCM. I'm here to speak upon X10 that's been approved today. First, I want to say thank you for approving this professional services agreements to provide staff augmentation services for the district-wide and combined not to exceed the costs given here. One of the things I want to say to Dr. Smith and the entire staff at the Build LACCD program, they have been doing a phenomenal job. I want to say thank you. One of the other things that I've done in working with not only Dr. Smith and the entire staff and the entire team at Build LACCD is as one of the board of directors for Construction Management Association of America Foundation chapter, I initiated an MOU, and thank you for approving this MOU, that gives LACCD the chance to not only be, or rather get the experience within our industry. It also gives them scholarships. So Dr. Smith and your entire team, thank you. Thank you for giving small businesses like my company, O2 EPCM, to be a small business prime. This is unheard of in many districts. I don't even think any other school districts has this. What you guys have put together here, Dr. Smith and your team, amazing. And to you all, thank you for your support. And thank you, Dr. Smith, for all you do, not only for small businesses, but also for our communities and our students. My company, since my company has been involved in this program, we have been having interns as part of my company. Yes, it is expensive, but it's my priority as a business owner to ensure that students are mentored. And And also as an engineer, right now we have 2 interns, not 1, but 2 interns from Build LACCD program. So Dr. Smith, once again, thank you and thank you to you all. Thanks for approving this contract ahead of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Livingston. Very happy to hear that. All right. Next up is reports from the board. Let's begin with Trustee Hoffman. Trustee Hoffman, can you please summarize the proceedings of the Budget and Finance Committee that you chaired on August 16th?
Thank you, Chair Bella. The Budget and Finance Committee met on August 16th. We approved the final budget, which is on the agenda today for public hearing and full board approval. And I'll just summarize a little bit about the final budget. The enacted 2023-2024 budget is reflective of the state's projected budget deficit of 31.5 billion as state revenue projections face increased uncertainty due to the extended tax filing deadline of October, which is coming up. The Budget Act reflects stable funding for California community colleges, including 678 million for cost of living allowance, 8.22% COLA applied to the SCIF and for certain categorical programs. The development of the district's 2023-2024 final budget, as you all know, has been an evolving process, which began in January when the governor rolled out his proposed state budget. Through the shared governance process, each college sets its own priorities to meet the institution's goals and objectives, and the final budget includes information submitted by the colleges and the district. The district's 2023-2024 final budget is $10.4 billion for all funds, reflecting the following major budget areas, and I'll just quickly summarize those. Prop A, AA, J, and Measure CC totals 8.5 billion. There's 1.1 billion in the unrestricted general fund, 260 million in student financial aid, 434 million in the restricted general fund, which is basically our categorical programs, 152 million in special reserves. So that's for state funded capital outlay projects, 30 million in the bookstore fund, 7.6 million for debt service, 14 million for child development centers, and 4.9 million in the cafeteria fund. The district continues to maintain a 6.5% general reserve, a 3.5% contingency reserve, and 2% deferred maintenance fund as mandated by our board policy. Everything you want to know, but you wouldn't understand if you asked, can be found in this book. I want to thank Vice Chancellor Gordon and her team for a very thorough presentation at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. And I also want to thank you, Ms. Gordon, for your written responses to board member Wellna's questions. And thank you for sending that to the full board. I think that clarified a lot of information for all of us. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hoffman. Next, Vice President Eno, please summarize the proceedings of the Legislative and Public Affairs Committee that you chaired on August 16th.
Sorry, mine are brief. For the Legislative and Public Affairs Committee, I have really good news. Trustee Wellness initiated AB 1096, the native language instruction, passed unanimously out of assembly concurrence with a 75-0 positive yes, as well as Trustee Burr's initiated AB 1151, campus facilities, also was passed unanimously and signed. So we are moving right along. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Trustee Henderson, please summarize the proceedings of the Institutional Effectiveness and Student Success Committee that you chaired on August 16th.
Thank you, President Bella. The Institutional Effectiveness and Student Success Committee met on August 16th at 4 p.m. The committee heard 3 informational reports, each presented by Vice Chancellor Alba Lopez and with Mr. Maury Pearl. The first was a student equity update. The second was a report on bot students and fraudulent applications and enrollments, and the district's continuing efforts to not only identify these enrollments, but to prevent the applications from getting through CCC Apply. We were assured that faculty are being informed on how they can efficiently and effectively identify these suspicious enrollments. The third report was an enrollment report highlighting summer and fall day 21 and day 42 FTES submissions for 2022-23. And we had 2 items for future discussion, which were an update on CCC Apply and the district-wide efforts to proactively combat AI issues. The next IES meeting is scheduled for September 20th, correct, Chancellor? So, and Mr. President, that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Vettis, can you please also summarize the proceedings of the Facilities Master Planning and Oversight Committee that you chaired on August 16th?
Yes, thank you. The committee actually heard several items. One is a recommendation for the full board's consideration, and that's for the district to engage with Southern California Edison in their Charge Ready program. It's a program that essentially includes a rebate to assist in the offsetting of the costs for infrastructure and the purchase of 1,000 new EV charging stations throughout the district. So very exciting overall, and it will, as presented for the board to consider, it's essentially a 10-year working order for the district that will be covering maintenance and operations, and of course, a rebate, again, as I said, offsets quite a bit of the cost. So that's recommended by the committee to the full board for approval. And the other items were informationally related. We had a robust discussion about the campus recycling centers. Each campus has its own process and approach to recycling. And of course, as part of our sustainability efforts, the goal is to achieve zero waste in our near future. But how we manage and operate is up for discussion, and we'll be continuing that item in assessing efficiency, effectiveness, and consistency district-wide as much as possible. So the committee also heard presentation on athletic and recreational facilities minimum standards in an attempt to sort of assess each of the college's needs and the kind of engagement that comes from being part of a community as well. And so that's an ongoing and continuing discussion to address the demand and the needs of not only our athletics, our health and wellness, and our community requests for use as well. We additionally heard an update on the housing plan. It was pointing to essentially progress in the project or progress in the implementation of our housing efforts, including timetables, timelines, a look at where we've come from in terms of the implementation efforts that are there. And each of those materials and handouts are available for the full board to review. Quite a bit of time was taken in discussing essentially the request for proposals and RFQs to be coming out shortly. And due to time constraints, some of the other items that were listed on the agenda, for in case the public is interested, were postponed to a future meeting. We did have a receive and file on the bond monitor annual report, and that's an item that I believe the board will be taking up as a full board very soon. So if I believe today in the closed session as well. So so that's the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Student Trustee Cordova, can you please summarize the proceedings of the Student Affairs Committee that you chaired on August 25th and September 8th?
Hi, yes. At the SAC meeting on September 8th, we had the lucky opportunity to have the SSCCC come present and speak to us regarding state issues such as room and board opportunities for community college students, which I feel should be a priority because I understand that we have all these great services, but without housing and room and board solely dedicated to our district, how can we fill these facilities if students don't have a place to go at the end of the day? Also last month, I had the opportunity to meet with the Campaign for College Opportunity, which presented today, and we spoke about the importance of transfer and graduation rates. And with that in mind, I encourage each campus to take an innovative approach at the tutoring services that we currently offer. As mentioned in the beginning, it's obviously an effort that we should all be taking to improve, as well as in getting more programs such as the UCLA CCP program that helps with transfer for first generation non-traditional students. So I'm a part of that program, so I know how important it is. And I hope to see more programs like that implemented in the future. And we, the ASG members and myself have partnered with the Safety and Security Services to use the Everbridge alert system app. I have been lucky enough not to have an issue where I've actually had to report something, so I can't really give feedback on it, but I feel really happy and like safe to say that I can call for help just at a tap of a button. So really can't wait to have this app used at all 9 campuses. Of course, you guys already know about timely care, but I just urge everyone to promote because mental health services is really important, especially we getting the fall semester started. Students are going through a lot. So just to have someone to talk to, make sure that you guys are getting the marketing out there. If you guys need help with the marketing, you can talk to me or Ms. Betsy. We have like marketing PDFs already made. So if you just want to like share them to your student services, we can do that as well. The ASG members have expressed to me that improving the food that we currently have to healthier options is important. And it's not really an action item, but it is an item that we are going to be presenting to the presidents at each campus, just so that we can have a conversation and try to see if we can implement healthier food options. I also had the opportunity to meet with the OSS committee at LACC. And I did this because I think one of my initiatives is to improve disability access as far as like classroom accommodations and other things of that nature. And one thing that I noticed about this meeting was that it's kind of like by themselves when as a district, I feel like we should work to have services, have the same experiences for all services at each 9 campuses. So I think it's important, and I encourage everyone to maybe meet with each other, like ELAC and all the 9 campuses regarding disability services and how we can, all 9 of us can improve our services together so that students can have the same experience. Sorry. So that's all that we did this month and that we talked about. And so some of the things that we have planned for the future is that we want to get the pantries for our clothing and food, the inventory for the clothing and food up. So we're planning on having like a drive where people can come and donate food so that we can actively have these pantries filled. Trustee Henderson, I believe, or Trustee Henderson had encouraged me to pass this along. So I'm glad that we're kind of getting it in the works now. So thank you.
Thank you. Great work. Trustee Hernandez, can you please summarize the proceedings of the Ad Hoc Committee on Student Basic Needs that you chaired on August 11th?
Yeah, so at the ad hoc committee, we've been going through presentations with our service providers that are providing room and board opportunities for students at LACCD, which is really important. And so we had Hoveness Inc. present at this last meeting, which was really informative about the services that they are providing across the district in regards to housing. We also had a presentation by Dr. Albo Lopez on the data and demographics and really diving into who exactly we are serving through our pilot project, the spring data related to student success, the status of student wait lists and placement requirements for each service provider. And the goal with collecting all this data is to really get a better understanding of how we can better serve students who are housing insecure and homeless and really improve the program as we build it. We are working on a overarching sort of comprehensive document on all of the efforts that the district has engaged in around homelessness. And we're hoping that Kelly King will be able to present this at the next board meeting, as this is something that I think most of my colleagues here really care a lot about and would love to get a better understanding of, just exactly what the district is doing across the board. Our committee is reaching out primarily to the county departments like DMH, DPSS, DHS, and various county supervisors, and making sure that we can collaborate and get resources from the county where it's appropriate. And we also had just a quick discussion about our student housing efforts in partnership, obviously, with FIMPOC. I'm really excited to make sure that all of my colleagues know that the RFI, the request for information for student housing, will be dropped this Friday. So that is, really under our leadership of President Vela. You've really pushed really hard to get this done. And so that's very, very exciting that will happen. So tell everyone you know. And then on top of that, we really want to make sure that we are bringing the entire community along with this effort to create housing across the district. And so we are working on doing a student housing summit where all of the stakeholders across the board, whether it's, student, faculty, staff, surrounding community members, are invited to really weigh in and give their thoughts on student housing and workforce housing potentially being built within our community. The dates are tentatively the 21st or 28th of October. We are still finalizing that. So once we have a finalized date, I will definitely make sure that everyone's aware, and we will we'll get more information out to folks when that happens. That's it.
You, and if you could please, if it's okay, ask Trustee Hoffman if maybe the league can to the
That'd be great.
student housing symposium. And then I do really want to
Working
thank,
on the dates.
yeah, I do really want to thank you
Mhm.
for, this is like the first time I see the county really listening to us. So thank you. I was in a couple of the meetings with the chancellor. So it was like, what? This is the county? It was like really welcoming. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When an RFI is sent out or released, and I know this is probably a Ruben question, who gets that? Where does it go? How do you choose where to send it? 'Cause I've actually had a lot of questions from people that might be interested or firms that might be interested, and they don't know how to access the information.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Trustee Hoffman. Typically, we post our RFIs, RFQs, RFPs on Planet Bids. We also publish in newspapers, locally throughout the county.
Okay.
Sometimes we go as far as Sacramento. Sometimes we go to San Diego, depending on, the project or what the procurement effort is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I would just ask, if we're planning a summit, if you could pick a few dates. October might be a little early. It might have to be earlier November, but let's work together when you're trying to bring together stakeholders.
Yeah, we're currently working to get perhaps, various electeds and the mayor there. So once we have those dates, we'll let you know.
Great, perfect.
So much. Appreciate it. Trustee Welna, can you please summarize the proceedings of the ad hoc committee on in-language instruction that you chaired on August 22nd?
Thank you very much. So we talked about AB 1096, and I just want to thank everyone, all staff who have done an excellent job, from Maria Velos, General Counsel Medina, Chancellor Rodriguez, and everyone, including our lobbyists who've done a great job. But at that ad hoc committee, we specifically spoke about really what's the next step if we're so lucky that the governor signs it. And by the next step is, we're trying to set up a meeting with the state chancellor directly in person up in Sacramento to just have a conversation about what potential implementation of 1096 would be. The other is a conversation about the 1972 Bilingual Services Act. Understanding that with our in-service process of learning, we've also seen a lot of issues with not having sufficient counselors, and hopefully getting those bilingual bonuses to our counselors and our librarians, and getting really looking at the concept of language equality, and looking potentially at the 1972 Bilingual Services Act, the Daimler a la Torre Act. And what does that look like if, for instance, if LACCD were to voluntarily put itself into that act, making sure that all of our students from the 9 campuses have equal access. And some of you may not know about the act, but languages that are used by more than 5% of the population in government services not school district, and it's not very clear what we would be considered, would be, have to service populations in those languages. Because we've noticed a lot of problems across the district. And again, making sure to extend those rights of language into not just the learning component, I'm sorry, not just the teaching component, but again, the bookstore, not just the bookstores, but the librarians and counselors and folks at the front desk. And to make sure that our folks who are speaking different languages don't feel discriminated. Okay. Thank you very much. And that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Hoffman, can you please provide any updates as board president of the California Community College League?
Yeah, thank you. On August 29th, Deputy Chancellor Burke, Chancellor Rodriguez and I were in Sacramento for the welcome reception for our new state chancellor, Sonia Christian. And both the chancellor and I had the privilege of being part of the platform party, if you will. And we both got to say a few words and welcome Dr. Christian. And it was a huge turnout, like over 200 people. It was really lovely. And thank you, Dr. Burke, for traveling with me. Appreciate it. In the past month, I've led or participated in collaboration with the League and the Chancellor's Office on several webinars highlighting and rolling out Vision 2030. Tomorrow evening, colleagues, I'm introducing a stellar panel as part of the DEIA Town Hall webinar series that the League has been putting on. It's our 10th town hall just on DEIA. And this one's titled Accessing DEIA in Leadership and the Classroom. You won't want to miss it. It's from 6 to 7:30 tomorrow evening. So please, if you can register and you have time in your schedule, please attend. I'm attending Consultation Council, which I do every month, usually in Sacramento, but next week it's in San Diego in conjunction with the DEIA Summit. And I know there are some Academic Senate members and other faculty and staff that are attending the summit. Trustee Henderson, I think you're attending the summit next week. I will be serving on a panel with the former Chancellor of the San Diego Community College District, Constance Carroll, Board of Governors member Paul Medina, and Deputy Chancellor Daisy Gonzalez. And it's a day and a half of DEIA workshops and activities. And I understand this is their inaugural conference, and it was sold out. It was a free conference, but it was enrolled and over-enrolled very early. So that should be a great event. I'm looking forward to it. And then lastly, the ACCT National Convention, which you guys are all registered, I'm told, takes place in early October. I want to thank President Gribbins, Ornelas, and Aguiar, along with myself and David Baca, who's the Region North Superintendent for LA Unified. Our proposal was accepted to do a workshop, and the workshop is Transforming Higher Education Access, a unique partnership with two of the largest districts in the country, LAUSD and LACCD. And this workshop aligns really nicely with the goals and the vision for Vision 2030. And then in my role as CCCT president, I'm hosting a California delegation reception. Some of you might remember it from last year in New York, in collaboration with the Foundation for California Community Colleges. Please make sure you attend the reception. It's the first night of the conference, so it's a Monday night from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Please make time for that on your schedule. It's a great networking opportunity. And that's my report for this month. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That sounds really good. Next, board travel authorizations. We have a motion and a second on item E2.
So moved.
Moved by Henderson,
Second.
second by Eno. Roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote?
Yes.
Trustee Buona?
Yes.
Trustee Henderson?
Yes.
Trustee Hernandez?
Yes.
Trustee Hoffman?
Yes.
Trustee Eno?
Yes.
Trustee Vella?
Yes.
Trustee Vettis?
Yes.
Okay, next is select annual representative to the LA County School Trustees Association. We have a motion and a second.
Yes, I move that Trustee Henderson be selected to serve as the Los Angeles Community College District Governing Board Annual Representative to the Los Angeles County School Trustee Association for the years of 2023 to 2024.
Great. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Buena. Any discussion?
Yeah, weren't you elected as treasurer? Ms. Henderson, congratulations. I just want to say it is really important to have a representative, and I'm grateful that you're serving. So thank you. I roped David into it the first year, remember?
Yeah. It was interesting memories from when I was in Montebello and I used to do it too. Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Trustee Anderson, for representing us. And obviously you being elected as treasurer is a lot of volume to it. At this time, can I have a roll call?
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Hey, congratulations. Yay. Okay, next up is resolutions. First one is to commemorate Mexican Independence Day and then Hispanic Heritage Month for the month of September 15th through October 15th. May I have a motion on second on F1?
So moved.
Moved by Henderson,
Second.
seconded by Eno. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Okay, next is in celebration of Labor Day 2023. Can I have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Moved by Henderson, seconded by Eno. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is resolution 3. It's to establish the LACCD and LAUSD Historical Black Colleges and Universities HBCU Day on October 24th, 2023. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Moved by Henderson,
Second.
seconded by Eno. Any discussion? Yes, Vice President Henderson.
I would like to just speak on, just briefly, about how important this partnership is and will be to our district as we promote increased enrollment with our partner K-12 districts. This collective, this partnership will support not only Black and African-American students as a whole, but Black and African-American males and students as a whole across this district. And I hope that we can have this partnership with some of our other neighboring K-12 districts for all of our identity groups. So I'd like to thank our Chancellor Fellow, Dr. Regina Smith, for her work on this, and my colleagues for signing on. Thank you.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez, trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Next, we'll turn to Chancellor Rodriguez for his report.
Thank you, Board President, fellow members of the board. Good afternoon, colleagues. A rather short report, but important items to share with you this afternoon. What I'd like to do is first talk about the fall 2023 start. We're off to a very good start. Touch on fall enrollments, describe some of our activities that are going on this month, some state support and philanthropic support that we have received. I'd like to introduce our new captain for the Community College Bureau, and then just foreshadow the discussion that will occur on October the 4th. This fall is, I want to thank the college presidents for being so welcoming to our trustees, to me and to others who were able to attend your opening day activities. It was clear that this fall 2023 felt different. It feels like the campuses are fully open, staff is back, faculty is back, students are partaking in services and support, and the mood is bright. And it's just after a 3+ year really doldrum because of the current or the past circumstances through the health crisis that we had. It was just very, very rewarding to be on the college campuses on that day and then on the beginning of that first week. So thank you all. Great job, college presidents, to you and your teams for really creating an environment that is welcoming, nurturing, and supportive. And you can see on the report that we have this month, lots of photos and lots of engagement. and interaction. All enrollments are looking pretty darn good. If we look at the statistics, the green arrows means good. Our areas are up in terms of subcategories and groups. Enrollments overall, you could see are up about 17%. This was a snapshot from Monday. It's tapered off just a bit, but it's holding pretty well. If this holds, and last year's numbers that we have turned in formally are about 7% up overall in FTES, which is very, very good towards our base. We're moving ever so closer to getting to our pre-pandemic levels. And so again, want to congratulate all who are involved with the enrollment efforts throughout the district to not just engage, recruit, enroll, but also to retain our students. I think a point that Dr. McKeever made earlier, retention is as important as recruitment. So we're going to continue to provide a healthy, welcoming, supportive, and inclusive, and ultimately an equitable environment for all of our students. So congratulations. Looking at the next level, the next slide here on enrollment, it's looking pretty darn good. We kicked off, as you all know, and thank you board for supporting the resolution in this particular month that supports the National Hispanic Heritage Month. And these are just some activities that are occurring that are supported and organized by the district. But I wanted to point out that each of the colleges has a whole myriad of activities, artists, shows, lectures, all kinds of opportunities for students and faculty and staff to engage. And one point is to elevate and highlight the role, the contributions, the presence and the engagement of Latinos in this country. But also, I think it's an important moment to reflect on, as we do with the other affinity groups that we support almost on a monthly basis in this district. It's also an opportunity to reflect and renew our commitment to ensure that the disparities that exist in health, the disparities that exist in education, the disparities that exist in home ownership, and so on and so forth, that riddles and continues to impact our minoritized communities, that we take an opportunity to think about how we can use this tool called education to remedy, to rectify, to redress a lot of historical injustices and inequities that have occurred. So while we celebrate a lot of these fun things that are going on and engagement, let's also take an opportunity to think about how we can use this tool, this powerful tool called education, to redress a lot of the historical inequities that we have faced and still face. Moving on, I'm real proud to share, the next slide, please. Real proud to share that some wonderful state support. I want to congratulate our government relations team, Dr. Roman and his team, all of our federal, as well as our state lobbyists who helped to kind of position a wonderful state grant and really recognize ELAC alumna, Senator Susan Rubio, who personally shepherded this $2.5 million through the state budget and is indeed now going to establish a district-wide small business for entrepreneurship center housed at ELAC that will engage in all kinds of important support for our small businesses. So again, we appreciate Senator Rubio, her leadership, and really shepherding this through to completion. Next slide, please. And it's another example of wonderful support. And really want to recognize Assemblymember Mike Fong. It was he who, I'm going to say 4 years ago, made an introduction to PepsiCo and said, Chancellor, would you mind talking to these folks? You know how he's, as our trustees are so good at making connections. And this wonderful conversation led to what now has been $1.2 million to LACCD. So thank you, Kelly King and your team for continuing to steward and provide incredible leadership to this company's opportunity to invest. And I think we made a bang. We were at Trade Tech. I was hanging out with Dr. Culpepper at this Tehuantepec tour, and they were very interested in what we were doing at LACCD. They saw the student body. I told them we have 8 more colleges where you can continue to invest your dollars in, and I think they heard us loud and clear to provide this backdrop for this national tour. They selected 3 community colleges in the whole United States to kick off, and they chose us. Besides, then they're going to Texas and then Miami after that. So again, a wonderful nurturance. So trustees continue to open those doors for us, those conversations. They can, if they lead towards supporting more students and defraying the cost of attendance and whatnot, and helping them pay for tools of the trade, we're happy to do that. But But I also wanted to recognize that there's some other groups that also continue to help us, and they're outlined in this Chancellor's report. Did you know that the Kroger Foundation gave us $100,000 again to outfit our students for our food pantries and direct student aid for our students who are food insecure? That the LACC Foundation was able to secure through the Hollywood Foreign Press Association scholarships for the cinema, TV, and journalism students. $65,000 there, $40,000 to West LA College, to the Transfer Center from the AT&T Foundation. And then really one of the most wonderful gifts from Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She outfitted once again to expand Hire LAX, the 8-week construction program over at Southwest College, a $1 million gift to that program. So you could see in the last several months, individuals, philanthropists, organizations, government, public agencies are continuing to invest at LACCD for the success of our students. So it's a proud moment. We're going to continue to steward these resources with a high degree of fidelity, a high degree of trust, and most importantly, the impact the lives of our students so they can reach their educational goals. A wonderful news there. Let me make a quick introduction here. The Community College Bureau is the contract that we have, if you will, with the LA Sheriff's Department. And I'm very, very pleased to introduce, and I'd like to have him come up for a moment, is Captain Israel Renteria. He is our new captain. He is the equivalent of our chief of police here at LACCD. While we have a campus safety and security division here throughout the district, he is the person that we turn to work with our 9 college leads and over 100 employees of LA Sheriff's Department that keep our campuses safe, secure. And Captain Renteria, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to welcome you to your new position. I understand you began that on September 3rd, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, September 3rd, I got the call from Sheriff Luna, who congratulated me and wished me well.
Well, welcome you to LACCD. I know there'll be a future opportunity to have a presentation on campus safety. So we welcome you to your new post and we wish you well. Thank you for joining our family here.
Thank you, sir.
Let's welcome Captain Renteria. And then lastly, on October the 4th, the next time that we will meet for a monthly business meeting of the board, I will provide a state of the district outlining some of the activities that occurred over the past year and then foreshadowing some of the good work that lies ahead. So Mr. Vela, Board President, I'm done with my report and happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Okay, I'll start to my right. Any questions from the Chancellor's report? No? Left over here?
Yeah, it's kind
Yeah,
of rude
Trustee
to
Hoffman.
like bring up Cheetos and Pepsi and then not have snacks for us. Thank you. Great report. And yeah, thanks. No questions.
Okay, thank you so much. And I was so excited, about all the good things that the employee organizations and trustees did that I forgot to bring up our wonderful president. So I'm gonna do that now, if it's okay with the board, under item C1. So let's begin with.
Sorry, guys, I don't think.
Sorry, we just skipped you all. Whoops, my bad. So please come on up.
Thank you so much. I think the
sure
Chancellor
they
gave
did
most of our
mine.
reports already, so. Real quick, I know we have a lot of business items, but enrollment, we're at 58,000, 10,000 more from last fall. So that just give you a sense of the magnitude as the Chancellor was talking about. All our 9 colleges are on the rise. September 18th, we're hosting a transfer fair. This is the opportunity for many of our students to get the support they need to begin to apply for their 4-year universities. We're gonna have food, as always. Food brings people, as you know. So we're gonna have a big festivity combined with other activities. We're collaborating with our ASU now because we know students are the best way to recruit students. So we're joining their Club Rush on September 26th to actually do enrollment for 2nd and 3rd classes for many of our students. And again, we're bringing La Michoacanas. If you're around and you want a paleta, come around. We have La Michoacana coming to ELAC. Basic needs, a couple of items I want to mention. Food Bank is now on board with ELAC, and we're going to be distributing food to our students 3 times during the month. Today was the first day. We gave out food to about 300 plus students. So it shows you the magnitude of the need there as well. We're working with Portos to provide food for our athletes, as well as our ASU, again, student-led snack shack that gives up to 3 snacks to students a day. This is funded by the foundation, and we just received another endowment for $30,000. State Chancellor's pilot that is launching. We have 2 schools, Garfield and Alhambra. These are going to be approximately 1,000 enrollments for 9th grade students. This is the beginning of what we hope will be a scaled-up district-wide approach into the state. We kicked off Mexican Independence Day with the participation of ELAC at the Mexican, or rather the Mexican Independence Parade. We were there. We were a sponsor, and we had a table. Our focus was non-credit and in-language courses. We had quite a bit of a crowd there for that day. President Vela, thank you for joining us for opening day. We had about 700 folks participate. President Vela gave a great inspirational speech. I want to thank you for being there. Classified staff had about a third of the entire participation. So we're being more inclusive and ensuring that our classified members also get opportunities to be part of our convocation. And lastly, September 22nd, and I know I apologize to my colleagues from DAS, we are having our Gloria Molina unveiling on the same day. We had to pick this day because this is the only day that was available for the family. So we will be with you in spirits, but we will be hosting the unveiling of the new Gloria Molina gallery at the Beef Dam. So if you can be there, we're gonna have food. We're gonna do a taste of Latin America. We're gonna have a trio. If you know what a trio is, we're gonna have music, and we're gonna have some of you that will be joining us to, again, commemorate this wonderful event. So with that, thank you very much. I can go on and on, but I appreciate all the work that you do, trustees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roman. And I really enjoyed the opening day, and in particular, that kind of motivational video that you played your whole community. It was amazing. I would love for the trustees to see in the future that video. It was just ridiculous. Yeah. Dr. Culpepper, please.
Thank you, President Vela. As President Roman just said, the Chancellor just pretty much took away all of my points. But I do want to just cover a couple of things. I want to acknowledge Joni Johnson, our faculty member, our colleague who facilitated the distribution of 300 tablets, free tablets, to our students with 5-year free Wi-Fi. And so that not only supported Southwest College students, but all our other sibling colleges as well. And so we appreciate the faculty stepping in and leaning in to support our students in that way, as they always do. Also, I want to recognize one of our community members. You may know her name, Auntie Dolores, who is the writer of our alma mater at Los Angeles Southwest College. She will be honored with a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. And so we're in planning for November to bring Congresswoman Waters, as well as possible the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, to the campus. And so we're in planning for that, and hopefully it will materialize. But we certainly want to recognize Auntie Dolores. She has been a staunch supporter of Southwest College in the days of Odessa Cox. And so we really appreciate her. Want to end with this, our athletics program, robust program now. We went from 0 to 75 full-time student athletes with an average GPA of 2.5. And we've already started off with a winning season. We are, some say 1-1, but I say we're 2-1 because we also run our scrimmage game. So I'm not going to take anything away from us. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Jabril, come on up.
Good afternoon, trustees, President Vella and Chancellor Rodriguez. Some more exciting news in terms of resources coming to our campus. LACC awarded $999,990, close to $1 million grant from the USDA Hispanic Serving Institution Education Grants Program. This new grant, which will help support outreach in partnership with Cal Poly Pomona, and also support our diversity and food science program and technology on our campus. So we are excited to receive this close to $1 million grant to our campus community. And also want to thank Armando, who's our dean, who's really instrumental in making this happen for our college. A lot of good activities happening on our campus in terms of Hispanic Heritage Month. We have activities this month and also today happening, supporting all those efforts with supporting our Hispanic community. But I also want to emphasize that we are, LACD College is launching what is called Timely Care, a virtual health provider which is providing free 24/7 mental health support and basic needs for our students across the campus. This is huge for our students who have basic needs, but also need mental support in terms of mental health. So we are excited about that effort. And then also in terms of enrollment, we continue to see increase in enrollment across our campus and our district, but we are proud to see our dual enrollment increasing in our partnership with the high schools. Last year, we had 83 sections. This fall, we are offering 94 sections, which is a 13% growth, which we're excited about. But most importantly, we are going to focus on really strengthening partnerships with the K-12, increasing retention, persistence, course completion, which is huge for our high school students as they come to us, but also creating a better pipeline from our faculty in terms of transitioning to teaching there, and also our K-12 really welcoming our faculty. And then in addition to that, we continue to see enrollment growth in non-credit. We've seen up to 56% growth in that area in terms of headcount, and also see enrollment in many areas that we're super excited about. So a lot of good things happening on our campus, and thank you for your continued support.
Thank you very much. Next.
Well, good afternoon. First, I'd like to introduce somebody who has joined the fray at West Los Angeles College, Dr. Carmen Donis, who is the acting vice president for academic affairs, while Dr. Archibald is out on paternity leave. So welcome, Carmen, and condolences. West recognizes its proud history of being a primarily Black serving institution in its first 3 decades. So I want to share with you some details about what we're doing at West. First, we currently enroll the highest number of Black students in the district, and we had a 17% increase in enrollment of Black students over this time last year. We have a 2-year, $300,000 culturally responsive pedagogy grant, which is focusing on redesigning online learning to improve success for Black students. Our Black Scholars United program last year was 46 students. It's now 98 students, with 10 more being ready to register at the second 8 weeks. We're working with Dr. Regina Smith to apply for a Umoja chapter at West. This Saturday, we'll be hosting the 37th annual Young Black Scholars Academic Kickoff and College Scholarship Fair through a partnership with 100 Black Men organization. And West is proud to be the first college in the district to form a student chapter of AMEN, which is the African American Male Education Network and Development. Now, over in aviation, I'm going to list some things. They all have something in common. American Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, United Airlines, Jetwork, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and Robinson Helicopter are all forming MOUs with us to recruit students. Many will have hiring initiatives. Qantas is going to be enrolling their employees in our apprenticeship program in aviation. And yesterday, 40 faculty and staff convened for our first climate change community of practice event. So we began the discussion on how to infuse climate change initiatives across the curriculum and develop major events. And October 24th to 26th is the Climate Palooza, ending with a big conference on the 26th Blue and Green Careers Conference, in which we'll bring together all 19 community colleges and representatives of the blue and green industry to answer one question: what kind of training do you need? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Like the other colleges, the enrollments at Valley are looking terrific this year, building on last year. Nonetheless, we're not satisfied where we're at. So the MVP colleges at Mission Valley and Pierce have been coming together and working hard to continue the momentum. Last week, we met with Region North Superintendent and leadership. Our teams met with them. They can continue to develop ideas for advancing our outreach and financial aid efforts, as well as our dual enrollment efforts. Got a lot. It was a really productive conversation. President Ornelas and President Aguiar, I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder again. Next month, I'm going to move to the back of the line, so I don't do that. And then the last comment I want to make is couldn't agree with Dr. McKeever more that we have to get the student life back. We have to get the activity and energy back on campuses. We have been seeing a huge improvement. This semester for us was like pre-pandemic with the energy the first week of class. It was absolutely amazing. Our ASU are doing a wonderful job of getting in-person events. We have our Dean of the Arts, Carmen Dominguez, was telling me, I think it was 51 arts events scheduled in person this year at the college. We had the Unity Picnic yesterday, which was absolutely wonderful. Natalie with our Rainbow Pride Center is doing an amazing job. Today, Dakota Newt was, we had the beginning of their art exhibit. That was absolutely amazing. Mesa Athletics, just a whole bunch of great activity back on campus, which I think is absolutely critical. Thank you.
Thank you so much. President McQuarters.
Good afternoon, trustees, Chancellor, and President Villa. What I wanted to share, I had an opportunity to disaggregate trade text enrollment numbers today by modality. I'm looking at students who are enrolled in at least one in-person class, either hybrid or fully online. That number is close to 11,000. So one of the things I wanted to share is that our campus is vibrant, students are present, and we're supporting and accommodating across the board. The other thing I wanted to share is next month, we are excited to host the 2023 LA Chef Conference. This annual event is geared towards the chef and restaurant industry. We will feature panels and cooking demonstrations, and students will be paired up with mentors. There's 5 scholarships of $1,000 that are being developed, as well as they're pairing up with industry mentors. They will be able to support the students and get them introduced to their future careers as well. So those are my 2 things I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Trustee Wellner, go ahead.
Dr. McWhorter, you didn't mention the grand meeting that was hosted by Trustee Henderson and yourself and me.
Yeah, so we had a great opportunity to meet with a number of judges and from the juvenile system, and it was amazing. We had attendance of about 30, and we were really kind of introducing and developing a work group to take the next step to kind of, talk about what we can do as a district with to help support students. So it was an amazing opportunity.
Just to add and help you. So I believe we did get a few juvenile justice grants throughout the district. So this was meant to add to that. And I believe you have an upcoming October meeting in which you committed me to making ribs. Right?
Yes, looking forward to it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'll be quick, I promise, but we have a lot of stuff going on at Harbor College. I want to thank Trustee Eno for joining us at opening day. Your Instagram picture got a lot of hits, showing off all that awesome Harbor gear, just saying. So thank you. Our Harbor Palooza event was awesome. We had over 1,000 students. They cleaned out the in and out truck. So next year we're bringing 2 trucks, and I'm sure they'll clean it out as well. As you know, we're celebrating our Hispanic Heritage Month. Our theme for this year is celebrating the Latina, her story, her voice, her strength. And we're gonna kick it off with Mariachi Lindas, all female mariachi. So if you're interested in coming and doing a grito next week, please join us at Harbor College. You guys all got the invitation to our Hall of Fame, which is September 30th. If you could join us, please. But if you can't, please put on your sneakers because the Reggie Run for Education is just around the corner. So you could join us there. Yesterday, we had 48 universities attending our transfer fair, well attended by our students. And so we had quite a bit of attendance. And then we just got word that we got the Homeless and Housing Insecurity Program grant from the state. So this is gonna help us assist our students that are facing housing insecurity, will allow us to even pay for rent, move-in assistance, and all other activities. So we're excited. To my colleagues from Mission and from Trade Tech, mark your calendar. The Culinary Cup is Friday, May 10th, 2024. Harbor College is coming back for their cup. And to Dr. Roman and ELAC, we had our tryouts. We had over 60 students trying out for our team. So yes, Dr. Roman, we're coming after ELAC as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Vela, Chancellor, trustees. I also want to thank Trustee Hoffman for joining us at Pierce College. It was a packed house in that museum and that performance center. So thank you again. We had a great time. She had lovely words to say to our team. And along the lines of competition, I just want to say that Pierce is back. It's been 43 years since we've had a soccer team, a men's soccer team. Well, we had our first home game, and sorry, Huskies. So I beat you to ELAC. On that note, we've also looked at our enrollment. We're doing well. We were so close. I just thought, I just need to add a few more classes and I'm going to close that gap to 2016. Did you see that? 93%. But, you know, we had to have exclusions and do our due diligence. So we're adding more classes, approximately 25 classes, of which they have filled in 3 days, no bots, they confirmed. So that will close our gap even further for this semester. So I'm really looking forward to that. And our team is working very hard. And then I have a very special highlight. The botanical gardens have been inserted into pictures of it into the first City of Los Angeles Urban Nature Gardens Guidebook. And we are in there with Griffith Park, Descanso Gardens, the Natural History Museum, and many, many other sustainable gardens. Thanks to Keith Peabody, he takes care of it, single-handedly waters it by hand. And this November, there will be a very special event at Pierce. There will be over 1,000 gardens being highlighted on in our arboretum. So I'll keep you posted on that. It's going to be a lovely event. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm the last one. Good afternoon, members of the board and Chancellor Rodriguez. I have a few updates from Mission College. Want to begin by thanking Trustee Veres for joining us for our Flex Day and welcoming our campus community. Also want to share that we've kicked off our Latino Heritage Month. I'm particularly excited about, well, we have several events, but our Chicano Studies Department is organizing a commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the Zoot Suit riots. So lots going on there. And then I have a couple of invitations. So on September 28th, as many of you know, Mission College has been offering several courses at our juvenile hall, local juvenile hall, Barry J. Nydorf, and one of our secure track youth will be graduating with his associate's degree. Yes, they're very proud of it. So I'd like to invite you. The graduation will be at Camp Kilpatrick in Malibu on September 28th. I believe Lupe has sent an invitation, so hopefully you can join us. An invitation by the chief has been extended to all of you. And then finally, Oktoberfest, right? Bavarian style cuisine by our very own culinary art students. It's October 7th at Mission College. So local craft beer. Hopefully you can join us for the celebration. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I think this is all of the president's reports, right? Just want to make sure. All right. So next we have a public hearing to adopt the LACCD 2023-24 final budget. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. And also we do have a couple of folks here that want to speak on it. Why don't we just start with them first, and then we'll go ahead with the presentation and then the board discussion. So yes.
What's the difference between a hearing and is this one of those open meetings, or what's the difference? I'm just curious. A hearing. I mean, there's not a problem. I'm just.
Oh, it's just it's a term of art, if you will. We just set aside the public meeting, and then we hold a hearing discussion and have public comment on a specific topic.
Okay,
It's just
that.
yep.
This is for the public. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Let's start with number one, Joseph Guerreri. LA Trade Tech, are you? Oh, here you go. Come on up.
Hello.
My name is Joseph Guerreri, and I am the AFT 1521 chapter president from LA Trade Tech. I'm here today to share my concerns and the concerns of many faculty on our campus about the budget allocation model and the negative impact it will have on both Trade Tech and Southwest colleges. First, we're very concerned about adding hold harmless dollars to the assessment-based percentage calculation. Having more hold harmless money does not cause centralized cost increase and should not be used in calculating the assessment. Also, the new model undermines fiscal plans that were developed by our College Planning and Budget Committee. Trade has carefully built a fund balance by controlling spending and maximizing the legitimate use of grants. The budget allocation model penalizes trade for doing the right thing and controlling our costs and budgeting thoughtfully. I would also like to note that under the current budget allocation model, Trade Tech has seen a large increase in FTES as a result of our post-pandemic planning and return to in-person instruction. So the argument that the current model does not encourage growth does not hold true for Trade Tech. For these reasons, I urge you to send the budget back to the DBC to be reopened for discussion, and I ask that Trade's final budget allocation be fully restored for this year. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next is Marvin DeCosta, either online or in person. Marvin?
Good afternoon. So yes, I'm online. So
Okay, go ahead.
greetings, Board of Trustees and Chancellor Rodriguez. I come to you as the Academic Senate President at Los Angeles Trade Tech College. But most importantly, I'm a servant of our students. First, I would like to thank you for restoring some of our budgets at our campus, as well as our sister campuses. At my first look at the proposed allocation model back in June, at first glance, the proposed allocation seemed reasonable to my non-financial eyes. Because I don't have that background in training, I look to our accountants and people that actually have the fiscal knowledge of reading complex budgets like we have, to see and understand the potential impacts on our students. I've come to the understanding that the calculations for the assessments paid by the colleges disproportionately impacts our historically marginalized Latinx and African American student populations attending many of our colleges, especially with LA Trade Tech College. When campuses move to increase marginalized population student success and economic mobility, we need to be systematically supported, not hindered. With the proposed changes of the percentage allocation assessment that we have to pay, it actually hinders a lot of the ability that we were planning to do with our students and moving forward. Recently, as you know, with all of our campuses, the ACCJC came around to do accreditation. The team that came to our campus, they were captivated by our ability through our guided pathway framework and funding model to improve outcomes for underserved and marginalized populations. The proposed budget will jeopardize this work. Having hold harmless money does not necessarily mean there's a cause for centralized costs to be increased. So the Academic Senate, we are asking that this budget model be sent back to DBC for another look and actually look and give campuses opportunity to actually review these budget models and see the impact it will have on their campuses. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next is Dr. Marsha Wilson.
Good afternoon, Board President Vela, Trustees, Chancellor Rodriguez. My name is Dr. Marcia Wilson. I'm a Dean at LA Trade Tech, and I'm representing Teamsters 911. First, I want to thank Chancellor Rodriguez for listening to our concerns that were shared in 2 separate emails from the Teamsters and providing some funds to the colleges who were negatively impacted by the budget allocation model, which is now the majority of our colleges. It is very much appreciated action, and it really does demonstrate a commitment to our college's budgeting process. We also want to, though, make sure that the conversation continues and that the district budget allocation model continues to be discussed in the district budget committee and that we reopen the conversations about this model. The budget allocation model can be quite complex. It is about determining how funds from the state should be allocated to the colleges in the district. Since I only have 3 minutes, it is impossible for me to address all the points, yet I don't even understand all the points. But I do want to point out some of the challenges that I hope the DBC will address. The Chancellor stated in his letter to our president and to our constituency members that the old model inadvertently rewarded colleges for declining FTES and reduced revenue to colleges with increasing FTES, which is not a long-term viable solution. However, the complexity of developing a model based both on costs and on revenue is challenging, especially to the degree to which the colleges have some control over these variables. He further states that in the new model, the assessment will be proportionate to the FTES and hold harmless revenue colleges receive. The hold harmless funds and revenues received by the colleges is quite complex, since it relates not only to FTES dating back to 2016, but also is influenced by specific types of FTES, such as career development and college preparation, CDCP funding, which is non-credit, and also special admit funding, both of which are funded at a higher rate and affecting the hold harmless. The decisions whether to engage in these types of FTES is very complex at our colleges. While I understand the EDBC and the DBC wanting to create an environment where colleges are financially incentivized to grow, but using a budget model that confounds the concepts of costs and revenues can create issues with equity. The Chancellor also used the word inadvertently when discussing the old allocation model, which is an important word since it suggests that there was no intentionality behind the budget allocation model to have those results. We as Teamsters are asking the DBC to reopen the conversation since the resulting impact of the new allocation model seems to impact the colleges that serve the highest proportion of disproportionately impacted students, especially Latinx and African American students, many of whom have the highest rates of housing and food insecurity in their communities. We know that this was not the intention of the model, but what is a true commitment to equity and diversity other than to look at what those unintended consequences are? We hope that the DBC will reopen this conversation and consider these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Any other comments online? Nobody? Okay. So next we go on to, again, this is a public hearing. We go on into the presentation of the LACCD 2023-2024 final budget. Joining us today is our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Jeanette Gordon, to provide a brief presentation on the 2023-24 final budget. Ms. Gordon?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I want to say that the readout from the Budget and Finance Committee by Trustee Hoffman was basically the presentation that I have today.
I read your
Thank
mind.
you.
I read your
Thank
mind.
you.
And the Chancellor's letter.
Okay, the state budget agreement, 23-24. COLA of 8.22% and growth of 0.5%. Growth of 0.5, we don't anticipate getting, and we do not budget growth before we get it. So it's not in the budget. The recruitment and retention deferred maintenance funds have been reduced. But they provided flexibility with those funds and our COVID-19 recovery block grant funds. So that you can use all those funds for whatever you want to in those areas. No changes to the student center funding formula. $10 million for LGBTQ for 3 years. The amount for LACCD is uncertain. I think it's somewhere around 900,000, but I'm not sure. The 2.5 million to East LA for Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center. The total 2.5 is for East LA, which is a pretty big deal. This page gives us the impact on LACCD. You look to the far right column, the total growth, if we were to get it, would be 2.2 million. The COLA is 61 million. That's ongoing money. Then we have COLA for several of our categorical programs of 8 million. The names of those programs are on the next page, in footnote 3, the COLA goes to, what it doesn't go to is the C program, but it goes to CalWorks, Child Care, DSPS, EOPS, mandates, block grants, apprenticeship, adult ed care, next up, basic needs, MESA, mental health, rapid rehousing, Puente, Veterans Resource Center, and Umoja. The next page is our one-time money. And the new money for us was negative because they reduced the deferred maintenance and retention money. They reduced that money. So we ended up with a negative of $25 million. And so the total increase here is about $45 million of ongoing and one-time money. District's final budget of 10.4 billion reflects the following budgets as were listed out earlier. 8.5 billion on our building fund, which we still have money in all five of these issues. 5.3 being the latest measure, LA. Unrestricted general fund is 1.1 billion. The restricted general fund of 434.2 million. This is what's in our budget. Now, if you look at our budget, you see the 434 is there now. At the end of the year, there will be more because all of our federal restricted money doesn't come in at the beginning of the year. So it gets added later on during the year. Student financial aid fund of 260.1 million. Special reserve, which is capital outlay projects of 152.4 million. Our bookstore of 30 million, child development of 14 million, debt service of 7.6, and cafeteria of 4.9. The changes from the tentative budget to the final budget. In the tentative budget, we do not include open orders, nor do we include the balances from the prior year's earnings. The balances from the prior year for colleges were 41.3 million. And from ESC and IT is 1.2 million. District-wide was 9 million. And then we have ECA money in there of 22.4 million. In addition, the open orders of $23 million has been added. The open orders are for those contracts that have been let in the prior fiscal year but not paid. And we have to carry those over into this subsequent fiscal year so they can be paid. Budget planning assumptions, unrestricted, total revenue of 878.9 million. Of that, 802 million is the TCR, which is the 741.9 plus COLA to give us an COLA of 61 million. The other revenue is dedicated revenue that comes to the colleges that is included in our total revenue. So when we set up our reserves, we base it on the total revenue, the 6.5 for general fund, 3.5 for contingency reserve, which is the 10%. And then we have 2% for deferred maintenance fund. So that's 12% that we take off the top of the revenue. The unrestricted general fund allocation assumptions, total budget allocations of 1,066 million. College allocations of 691.2 million includes 49.4 million of EPA money. District-wide services are at 150 million. The ESC is 38.8 and informational technology is 21.5. But for all intents and purposes, this is the ESC, 21.5 plus the 38. We just separated out because the IT is such a large amount of money. Contingency reserve is 30.8 million. The general reserve is 57.1 million. Contingency reserve is a reserve that can be used during the year with board approval if we have some unanticipated expenditures that we have to deal with. General reserve is stable for the entire year. We never go in and change that during the year. Deferred maintenance is 17.6 million. These funds are given over to facilities and then they schedule out how those funds are going to be used. The supplemental retirement program is the third year, 4.7 million. And each year prior to this, for the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a reserve set up to cover increases in STRS and PERS. That money is exhausted now. We don't have any left. And if we try to set up another fund for that, it would have to do it during this year. These are our unrestricted allocations by college. You can see on this page, the adopted budget from 22-23, the 23-24 tentative budget, and then the final budget for 23-24 by location. So it's, East LA is our largest college with the largest balance. And also, this does not show ESC, but it runs around the same amount as your 3 smaller colleges, the total for that budget. This page, the next page is total general fund. So this budget includes the $434 million of restricted programs by location. And as you can see, it is very impressive with East LA with 238 million now. This includes SEA, the C money, the strong workforce, Prop 20, adult ed, and all the HERF money. Budget highlights. The final budget includes emergency conditions allowance of 46.1 million. That was for 2 years. We got the money when we did our emergency conditions, which actually contributes to our ending balance for the past fiscal year, because we got 22 million of it in 22-23. We have the fiscal year 23 COVID block grant of 45.4 million. The HERF indirects of 11.4. These are indirects that were set up as the colleges were using their HERF money. They set up indirect costs and they could put it aside and it carries forward in their balance so they can use it for future use with no restrictions on it. Then we have the prior year instructional materials block grant of 27.5 million. Student equity and achievement, which is the C money of 66.7. Notable expenditures, information technology at 63.3 million and security of the 30 million. And that concludes the report. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gordon. So I do want to let the trustees know that there was a final budget that was put on your desk in your office. I also want to see if we can start to the right with any questions. So I'll start with student trustee Cordova.
For the exhausted fund, what is that that was exhausted? The PERS?
That was a reserve that we set up. STRS and PERS a few years ago they had such large increases projected for us. We set up a fund so that we could add additional money to the college budgets to help them cover the increases each year. And we've used it all up. And it's sort of stable actually now, but we're not sure what could come in the future, but it worked out. It helped the colleges a lot with their budgets by setting that up.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just to be clear, and one, I want to thank you for the different answers you gave in writing. I appreciate that. And we wanted to make sure that the rest of the board got it. So thank you again. My biggest, I guess, concern is June of 2025. In June of 2025 is when the first month of hold harmless. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the way I'm looking at this budget is this is a hold harmless year. Next year, you have essentially 2 things happening from what I'm understanding. While it's hold harmless, you also have next year's FTS number. And I know there's all kinds of with the funding formula and everything. that goes along with it. But next year, we kind of get 24, 25, we kind of get set in stone. In turn, it's in essence, our 25, 26 check is going to be based out of 24, 25. Am I correct or incorrect?
Only if we don't generate our FTES to a level that it takes us completely out of hold harmless. If we are able to do that, then we would get what we earn, and we would also get COLA. See, the difference when we go into 25, 26, we will no longer get the benefit of getting COLA if we're still below what they call the floor. But if we're able to grow our FTES enough to catch up, in other words, get back to the pre-16, 17 numbers, we will be able to generate revenue and also take advantage of the COLAs that they give. But our projections right now don't put us there. We're still under hold harmless. The way it looks like we're not going to get out until 27, 28, but that's right now. We're going to continue to do projections and see what's happening because the FTES, the growth is going a little faster than we thought it was. So I'm thinking that 25, 26 may not be as bad as we're projecting right now.
So in terms of 16, the relationship with 2016, and I know you've probably explained it several times, and maybe just me takes a few times to understand. So I looked at the state chancellor's FTS numbers. So in 2016, 17, I believe those numbers were 99,000 FTS. Am I correct? Or I mean, you may or may not. I looked at.
I don't remember the exact number.
99,700 and something to be exact, but 99,000. Okay. So right now is the 23, 24 budget based on the FTS from 2016?
It's based on the whole harmless revenue. Just a minute, I'm going to call the brains up. Deborah. Latier. This is Deborah. She is the director of budget and finance analysis.
So the answer that you said, what was the FTS in 16, 17, and I believe the total FTS was 107.9. The FTS formula, we are given the revenue equivalent 107, which if you do it comes out to about 9. So you are the 20. For Ms. Gordon, are getting to sorry. So that's based on next year's hold harmless is based on the revenue equivalent of about 107,984 FTS, which, like I said, equates to about 99,000 FTS.
Thank you. So this year's FTS, I think, what month did we report the FTS this year?
So this year we were under the emergency conditions allowance, which it was 98,000 and change.
What month did we report to the state the FTS? Because I saw in the report it was 76,000.
You are correct.
FTS.
So we have to report emergency conditions allowance still requires us to report the actual. So in July, I believe we reported our P2 number. I'd have to verify with Ms. Alba Lopez.
So in terms of right now, in terms of not just 99 minus, and the numbers are going to fluctuate. I understand the numbers are going to fluctuate. But we've kind of had different scenarios that June of 25 is going to be a bad month, or June of 2025 is going to be not so much of a bad month. Now, it's awesome that we have an increase in enrollment. We all want that. My biggest concern is if we're at 76,000 because we saw enrollment go down, and if FTS is not necessarily enrollment, but the FTES being at 76,000, and our goal, what I heard earlier, was to get to pre-COVID FTES, that would mean an increase of 22,000 by 2025. That's where I'm hearing different numbers. And maybe there are different numbers, because you can have different realities or different answers to get to the same thing. So as a trustee looking at 2025, if we're looking to look at FTS to get to where you're healthy at 2025, I'm not seeing how being at 76 FTES at this point gets us to 2025 where we're healthy. I'm just not seeing it.
I didn't want to make you think, I was saying we have a better chance of being closer to being healthy based on the actual rate with which we are, bringing back our FTES. I'm thinking we're going to have a better projection and be in a better place.
So,
but there is a lot to make up the
Right.
22,000. Yeah.
So understanding that, which is my biggest concern, that even though we're increasing, I think we increased by 6,000 FTES from a year ago, which is a big jump because we had been decreasing. But if we're going to be here in 2025, and some will be here, some will not, how does this budget, if we were, let's say in 2025 right now, we do have the ability to foresee, how does it get us there? So when we're there, we don't say, oh, we should have been looking at this. We should have made this cut. Our projection should have been based on this, because according to the Chancellor's letter, which again, just to clearly understand, our hold harmless isn't on the 10 or some odd number. It's on the 1.1 million. Not on the student financial aid. It's not on all the other stuff or the building funds. It's on the unrestricted general fund. Okay. So again, understanding that next year is such an important time, because we're going to be judged by it. Does this budget, if we were to foresee, get us to a place where we will be operational and we don't have to do any layoffs or furloughs at that time period because we didn't look at something now?
Right now, for us to ensure that we don't end up having to lay people off, we fortunately are in the year with like $187 million ending balance. Colleges have larger ending balances than they've ever had. We need to manage our funds for the next 3 years so that we don't use any of these one-time funds, these ending balances, for long-term commitments, and try to have some of that money set aside to handle whatever happens in 25, 26. That is what the colleges have to do. I mean, we have a lot of money right now, but it has to be spent. We have to recognize that we are deficit spending. When we spend more money than we receive in one fiscal year, that's deficit spending. And the only reason we don't go in the red is because we have ending balances to draw upon to continue operating. So we've got to make sure that we don't commit anything that's long-term on these extra funds that we have right now. And that'll help us in 25, 26, in addition to the fact that we will be increasing our FTES.
Trustee Vela? Oh, because I do have a few questions, but I want to make sure. Can I ask about maybe 2 or 3 more questions, then come back? I just want to be, okay. So That's helpful, but if you look at, because you answered a lot of questions, and the base, I think the allocation per student is 5,238. You take 5,238, and I know that there's other allocations depending on some other factors with other students, times the 22,000 deficit FTS, that's around $115 million. If we didn't, because right now you said if the colleges manage their budget. I've asked a few times whether we as a district verify those numbers from the colleges. And from what I understand, the colleges manage their own budget. So we don't know, we don't verify what they do or do not do. So if we have a deficit because of the 22,000 FTS at 115 million, won't that eat up the surplus potentially really quickly and then leave us at a lurch?
Oh, yeah. Well, as long as we're in whole harmless, we won't have a problem. We will be able to get the revenue at our floor. It'll stay there. But back to what you said about we don't direct the colleges on how to do their budgets, but we do monitor. We have quarterly meetings to talk to the colleges about where they are with their budgets and their projected ending balances. We talk about the FTES, and we point out, and they point out areas where there are issues and where there may be issues. So we do that quarterly, 3 times, 3 quarters, and then for the end of the year. So we will be aware. We do check to see what they're doing, but we don't direct them on how they handle their budget. We don't direct them on how they set up their budget. We don't direct them on how they spend their budget. We just like I just said, we advise you need to be cognizant of the fact that you have a lot of money now, but it's one-time money. So do not commit these funds until you know that you're going to be getting revenue to cover. In addition, the FTES that you're speaking of, that's only part of the revenue. They get revenue based on their metrics. So they will be generating revenue based on how successful they are with the students that they have. So it won't be just a $5,000 per student that they'll get. Using what you were just using as an
Right,
example.
and thank you. One, I want to thank you for answering the questions. I greatly appreciate them. I think my biggest, and this will just be my final comment before the other trustees ask questions, is my biggest concern in looking at this is that looking at 25, 26, I have to at least make an individual decision as a trustee whether the decisions we're making right now are sufficient and not volatile so that 25, 26 isn't a bad year. And I think what I'm hearing doesn't answer that question. And I appreciate you answering them because I do believe you. You're an awesome finance. You're vice chancellor, the best. However, in this particular situation, I'm finding it very difficult to believe that in 2025, we will be sufficiently healthy in order to vote for this budget. But thank you again for your answers. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Trustee Buena. Let's keep going this way. Vice President Eno.
I'm okay with questions right now. I do appreciate the public comments that were made and discussing with the chancellor too about making sure that all of our campuses are able to operate effectively with the funds they have. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Henderson.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ms. Gordon, Ms. Latier. I guess my concern is not directly to the budget, but regarding the budget allocation model and concerns that have been raised regarding our 2 colleges, Trade Tech and Southwest. Could you maybe answer, because there have been requests for this to go back to the district budget committee. How much discussion was involved with our stakeholders in terms of their participation in the district budget committee to come up with this? Because I'm concerned that now that there are questions, when people say that they are now having an opportunity to look at it, how in-depth was the conversation?
It was 6 months. It was about 6 months that we and the ECDBC the group went over the allocation model, doing the review of the total allocation model. And it was recognized while we were doing that, the inadvertent results that were happening for colleges that were earning FTES were not getting compensated for it, whereas other colleges that were not were. So what we've done, and if you saw the chancellor's letter, we have made those colleges whole. There is no, these colleges now are right back where they would have been had we not changed the model at all. We've given them that money back. And this is it changes every month because as your FTES go up, you get more revenue. And those that have less revenue less FTES, they get less. So we have actually remedied that problem that they saw. But the fact that you have a college that is growing and they're not getting money, and then a college that is not growing is inadvertently getting money, we couldn't let that happen because you don't want to disincentivize a college to try to grow. So we thought that had to be fixed. And it was consensus among the entire group that we do that. And when we finished with the process, we had two options. One option versus another, where the dollar amounts were different. And the committee chose the option that actually ended up where you had Southwest and Trade. Well, Trade really had a large reduction because we're one district, and when you give money to somebody, you have to take it from somebody else. And so, but I think the chancellor's letter went out, and I thought we were okay right now because we're right back where we were. And we said we were going to look at this model. It's going to go back to the DBC. They're going to look at it and ECDBC, and we're going to make adjustments in February.
Thank you for that. Like I said, I'm always concerned when we have all of these iterations of a budget or a board policy or what have you, and then we get to the final, and then we have folks saying, well, I wasn't aware, I didn't know, I have a concern. So I just wanted to make sure that questions have been addressed. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and start with the left. Trustee Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair Bella. Thank you for your presentation. I just want to make a comment that everyone is welcome to come to the budget committee meetings. We had several meetings where we talked about the allocation model. I actually asked to have it brought back a couple of times. And so I just want everyone to know that those are open meetings. And I take public comment and I will call on you. So I want to thank you, Ms. Laterra, Ms. Gordon, for the presentation. I have like 3 questions. One is just a comment with the SERP. And correct me if I'm wrong, have I lived through 2 SERPs now? Okay, so we paid off the first one. Okay, that was my question. So we're in the second one and there's 3 more years of payments. Is that correct?
2 after this.
2, okay. And then I just want to make a comment about the public safety. You had $30 million up there. When I got on this board, when we were a much bigger district, we had a lot more students. That contract was we were spending $18 million, and we thought $18 million was a lot. So I just want to make the point that in 8 years, it went from 18 million to 30 million. I kind of feel like it's car insurance. My car insurance went up 40%. So I don't know how that's a big chunk of change that, we've got less students. We've got less people on our campuses, yet our public safety contract has almost doubled, nearly. So I just wanted to make that comment. And then can you go, and then the IT of 63.3 million on the other slide where you had the whole cost for the ESC, I don't think that was, IT didn't make up 60.3.3. So can you explain that? I know, I see you're shaking your head.
That is a combination of the IT staff in the ESC building and the IT staff at all of the 9 colleges, all combined equals 63.3. I wanted to give you a better look at how much we are spending as a district with IT.
Okay, so in the budgets for the colleges, if they have staff, IT staff, they are not responsible for paying them from their budget?
So the college IT is in the district-wide budget.
Okay.
It's not at the local, the direct costs are not at the local college. There is some coordination, and I would hand that over to Ms. Litz to discuss how that all works. But it's two buckets essentially, IT money.
Okay, so the colleges aren't responsible for having to pay, but they're assessed at a certain,
They're assessed.
okay. Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation. I think this was really helpful.
Trustee Hernandez?
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. Some of my questions a little similar to what Trustee Wilna was asking. We had a presentation on enrollment FTES projections 2 months ago, and I believe it was presented there that if we had a projected 2% increase in enrollment, we wouldn't get out of hold harmless till about 29, correct? Which would mean that in order to maintain the same spending, we'd be eating into our reserves at a tune of like 100 million. This has been a meeting with a lot of good news. It sounds like 7% was reported by the Chancellor in his report. And I just heard you say right now that because we're doing better than expected, you anticipate that we will get out of hold harmless probably 27, 28. So what does that do? Like, how much is that going to eat into our reserves? Is that not 100 million anymore, but what is the projected amount that we're going to be shipping?
So we haven't run the numbers given the good news for fall, et cetera. But I will say in October, after we have our first quarter, all these projections are going to be run again. They will be presented to the Budget and Finance, and we'll have a better feel that we do this every quarter. We're just constantly updating based on the trends of cost, the trends in enrollment.
How much do we have in our reserves right now?
In our reserves, we have, what is it, it's 51 plus the 30.
It's about 80,
Yeah.
80 million.
But
80
we
million.
have $187 million in ending balance.
An ending balance.
Yeah.
So, but it would be fair to say that we will be at least below 100 million that we will spend in total because until we get to 27, 28.
If I can picture the projection, I think that's where it goes down, because we keep track of what percentage of ending balance do we have. And it doesn't get down to less than 1, I don't think, until when? I can't remember exactly, but
30.
yeah.
But that doesn't assume that we're not making adjustments all along the way. As we get better data, we can make these choices on how to tighten if we need.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate that. Obviously I will look forward to getting those refined projections because I think that's probably necessary to figure out where we're at health-wise. But I do want to make a comment on that because, I've gotten feedback from stakeholders questioning the utility of the district in holding such a large amount in reserves. And as you illustrated, this is why. This is absolutely why.
Yeah.
I know, even with increasing enrollment, even with all the good news that we've gotten at this meeting, we are still going to be forced to eat into our reserves at some amount to stave off budget cuts, job cuts, program cuts. And I'm assuming that's going to be to the tune of at least 50 million. Who knows? We'll figure that out in the fall. And that's really scary to me as a board member with fiduciary duty to this district. So given where our reserves are at, you're confident though that we will have whatever those projections are in the fall, you're confident that we will have enough to cover us till 29, 27, 28.
This is assuming no real changes, the patterns. We have to say things are done exactly the same way they've been done. And that can change, but we are very conservative. And we look at that bottom line, and when it starts going down, that's when we get concerned. It should not go below a 10%. If it gets down below 10%, then we start worrying. And then you put in some more drastic measures, but it doesn't mean you're laying people off. You're just cutting back on hiring and you're cutting back on certain unnecessary expenditures.
Mhm.
So we keep enough ahead of that to implement things like that before we have to do anything serious.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Hernandez. Trustee Vettis?
Few general thoughts, and then maybe some of my comments can just be taken to a budget committee or other kinds of spaces to discuss. So first, I know we've had this conversation about the budget allocation model. Seen a number of them over the years. They change every few years. I think every once in a while when we go through the change, there are concerns that are raised, not dissimilar than the ones raised today. They always seem to be raised in a similar kind of fashion. But the one thing I guess I will say is it's a product of shared governance, participatory governance. There's a lot of people in the room as this is getting discussed and dialogued about, and it's not static. I think that's the one thing I can say, that it's probably gonna change again at some point. I would like to say, because it's clear maybe the formula doesn't work exactly for everybody, but I do appreciate the comment about coming back and taking a look at mid-year, especially in February, to understand what it really means, because some of the fears would be very warranted. And of course, if that's the case, then let's adapt and let's change, because I don't think there's any of us that want to see any one of our colleges suffer because of a formula. But if it seems to work well enough and the fears can be assuaged in that sense, and so we can make sure that the communication is very steady between all the college representatives and the trustee and all the entities that are there, including the sports. Sometimes we don't always get the full-fledged mid-year in the way that we get this final budget presentation. So thank you there. I wanted to ask about, and I see this as a trend throughout the city and certainly the state for other entities, not necessarily just schools, but theft and vandalism issues. Typically, those become part of our insurance process. Most of our insurance is really self-insured to a substantial amount and move forward. Have we assessed, or are we viewing any potential theft damage? I've seen and heard of stuff like even copper wires pulled out of facilities, light posts and stuff like that, which creates, it's not quite deferred maintenance, which I think is still there and steady, but wondering how we assess the fact that I think theft and destruction of property is sort of a reality that we're confronting right now.
So are you asking if we do when we do the budget, or are you asking if?
Have we over the years kept track of things that would be considered theft, destruction of property, vandalism, et cetera? Do we have a separate category for that? I'm only reflecting the question because it's something that the city and the county, Caltrans, the state, they're seeing upticks in it in lots of ways. Certainly in the private business sector, they're seeing plenty of upticks on theft and vandalism issues. But how do we handle it? Do we track it? Do we just sort of pull it out of our reserves if it comes up? Do we have a sense if it's growing or not?
The only way we have somebody else. The only way we really notice it is when we go out for our insurance, renewing our insurance, and the premiums, they start asking about incidents, and and then
Right.
the premiums go up. But that's, as far as I know, that's all that we've done. And we notice it like in the security, the 30 million now. I know that's a lot more than we did before, but things have changed. And just like we give our COLA, the sheriffs give our COLA, so the salaries have gone up. Then we have different types of services that we're requiring them to do. So that makes that go up. And a lot of it is based on the assessment that they have of how much it takes to secure a college. But as far as tracking incidents, because right now I know we've been having a lot of problems with cars being broken into at the colleges inside of this structures and like that. I'm not sure who would be keeping track of that unless it would be the sheriff.
Is it, and like I said, I don't have an account for it. I don't have a number. Like, and I'm gonna do this in sort of comparison to the deferred maintenance fund. Those are planned. They're not always as much as I think probably Ruben and his team would love to see in terms of the amount. But we're going by best practices there, I think is what we're trying to do. But this is one that now, like going by 4 or 5 years worth of seeing stuff. And I don't even know if this is something that like sort of can be akin to, settlements we pay out as well. I mean, there's a piece of it that comes from us. I mean, that there's just nowhere to go other than the fact, and it's somewhat unexpected, but I guess I'm asking the question because when it's unexpected, that's why the reserves and savings are there when it's unexpected. However, I think we can start to see trend lines and we have understandings for when things are coming forward. And, it's a question just to understand that this is something others are now starting to consider and assess, that there's going to be not just fixing something that's run down over time, but really dealing with the fact that some stuff just is wantonly getting destroyed.
So I think what you're saying is, but right now, because this has been happening a lot, do we want to consider setting up a reserve for that? Or do we want to set up pull money off the top to set aside for those kind of things? And I think that's the way we came up with the deferred maintenance fund, is the same way. So that's something we can consider. But remember, when we come up with something like that, it takes money away from everybody and everybody's not going to be happy.
Oh, no, I understand that. But the worst thing anybody wants is, and I say this because I remember entering this building here after car accident, after broken windows, after whatever, because we didn't exactly have a budget allocation for, what to do with destruction on property here. But, I think at the same time, nobody wants to walk into a classroom, a building, a facility that's blown up. And this is not the kind of stuff that's planned out. This is not the kind of stuff that's regular maintenance. This is not the kind of stuff that's deferred maintenance. So, I mean, if it's a number that seems to accumulate, we don't have it listed anywhere right now. That's just a reserve issue. And I think if most of us are talking about, and maybe the number is not that big, maybe the number is bigger than we think. But, I think I would want to make the recommendation to explore it as a category, not necessarily assign a number to it, but to try to understand it over years. And I think, we've always dealt with it just as a savings, just take it out of the reserve and we'll deal with it.
Exactly. And that's what the contingency reserve is for. And
But if
as long
it's-
as we maintain our reserves in the incidents don't get too big,
Sure.
then we're fine because we can cover anything that comes up.
Completely understand. And I know that's been our practice. And I guess the question I'm asking is, should we change the practice? Because it's starting to get consistently, bigger and more of a problem than we need. We've handled it we see the increase on the security side, not just in COLA, but like equipment and cameras and all those other things we're doing. So obviously we know and we see that we have to do something more there. So, so that's that. And I'll ask this last question. And for programs and activities that we do, for example, child development centers. Like over the years, there's been it's been presented to the board that there's an entity that doesn't necessarily, revenue that comes in doesn't necessarily cover the space that's there. How do we assess that in our budget? And how do we, do we just continue to light item, or do you have a way to track some of these entities that may not necessarily, sort of cover their balances, and what do we need to ensure that it's operating in the black?
You're talking about the entities or the colleges, because each college budgets for their child development.
Yeah.
And they handle it in different ways. Some upfront, put the money up front to cover the costs. Some end up at the end of the year with a deficit and they just pull the money out of the general fund. So, but we don't assess, we don't look at what they're doing. As long as they can cover
there's some
expenditures.
interesting accounting that you described right there or differences of accounting procedure, right?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get to understand is, are we entering every single year understanding where we're gonna run a deficit space? And then what now you're telling me some people account for that on the front end of the budget and some people account for it on the back end of the budget. And
they
that's what
don't
I'm trying to
all-
understand. What should be our standard practice? Because if we're accounting for it at the front of the budget, I think it sort of, it almost gives the sense that we're just gonna, maybe there's no reason to change and to attempt to be more efficient. If we cover it on the backside, at least we know what the deficit is every year. We have a deficit regardless. But it's kind of asking, and I don't know if, and I just pulled out one fund, but I know over the years we've had issues in other funds as well. But I just want to be able to get to sort of a clear cut standard accounting practice. And if we run deficits, let it be on the back end so we can cover. But, it's always difficult to start. We're supposed to start these budgets balanced.
Well, the thing is, I
And those
guess you
things
have
don't
to
start
dec-
balanced.
we have to decide, what do we want to do? Do you want to have a child development fund? Do you want to have child development centers? It's going to cost a certain amount of money. And as long as you can afford to pay for it, we should have it, whether it gets on top or you pay for it at the end. Because we had that problem with our cafeterias. They were not making any money. They were a service to the district. So we just had that as one of our costs. So if that's what you want to do with a program, you can do that. Or are we trying to make profits on programs? Or are we just trying to
Right.
break even? Or do we want to provide the service? And the service is going to cost you more than you take in for the
Well,
service.
if that's the case, I just want consistency. I want to know which one are we doing? For us, is child development centers service? And if it is, fine, it's service. This is what it costs. Let's have consistency across the board. Bookstores, we have an outside contract for the cafeteria, but whatever the space is, if it's going to be a service, that's one thing. We're providing programs to the public and we can assess it in terms of that. But if it's, we always endeavor to start off with a balanced budget and then we invariably know there's going to be a deficit.
Except in a bookstore. Now, you do expect to make money in a bookstore. And the problem we have in our district is we have district employees working in the bookstores. If it was not, bookstores that don't make money would go away.
Right.
But the bookstore can't go away because we have employees and we have to remember that.
I just recently heard the presentation from ASUCLA. That's a profit endeavor and it's not on the state's and this college's budget. They run it like a business and they ask for specific criteria. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is these are always, and it's not going to sort of prohibit me from passing this budget, but I think as we construct the budget in the future, and maybe this is something for the budget committee, to grapple with, these kinds of things that we start off knowing. If we got a group of our schools knowing that's going to run a deficit and a group of our schools just accepting that's going to be a service and not a balanced budget, let's just be consistent there, because it makes it very hard on a policy to make a uniform policy when people have different ways of approaching the funds there.
Well, if you set the policy and then you leave it up to the college to implement it the best the way they can, it would still allow them to either do it up front or at the tail end. That's
So
what I think.
I'm just suggesting that, I'm not going to change what's presented here or offer to change that, but I'm going to suggest that the budget committee consider one policy either on the front end and view it as a service or in the back end and understand what the deficit annually is. That's all. Thank you.
So did you want to respond real quickly or?
I was going to mention, I believe it's the colleges run our CDCs as a service. It's not a money maker. It's though it does generate revenue from those who are able to pay. There is state support, federal support, money from patrons, and then institutional support that supports the overall operation. But when I remember last, we were ran at about a 30% loss across the district. So what I remember, just in terms of the cost to operate. But the theory is it allows students to stay in school and provide support. So we get FTS generation from that. So there's other revenue streams that way that makes up the deficit. So, but the philosophy is a service. That is.
So, thank you, everyone. I do have, a couple suggestions and, that, I kind of made some notes here. I do think that we do need to have some type of like budget risk mitigation plan in place. And I do think that the trustees should have a workshop to give you guys ideas of if we were to cut unnecessary expenditures, what would they be? Another one would be, giving you guys ideas on revenue generation. There have been, proposals to the district on ways that each college can make money, whether it's through private public partnerships, whether it's through putting a kiosk, inside and have, like corporations or whatever announce stuff. I know there's code and I get that. But I think that, because 90 or whatever percent of all of this money is really just people. So preparing for doomsday is like cutting people. So we don't have a lot of options. Hiring freezes are good. Early retirement, those are all programs that don't get rid of our current employees, well, except for early retirement. But that's a good one, right? Early retirement, with incentives. But I do think that what I would not, want, Chancellor, is that we go far and then we don't hear from the trustees as to, you mentioned programs, maybe there are some. I applaud the fact that, the cafeteria, at first I remember I was like, why is this going to this private company and la la la? But now I know that it's no longer a budget encroachment. Same thing with our bookstores. I mean, I'm bold enough to say, I wouldn't mind, like, Cal State LA has King Taco there. I mean, let's be blunt. There are other ways we could create revenue without hurting the institution in order to provide some revenue enhancement. So I'm not saying that that's what we should do. I want to make this very clear, but I do think that as trustees, we should have a little workshop with y'all, with the chancellor, with all of you, to let you know kind of like where we think, if, where we would go in if there were to be, for example, cuts in unnecessary spending, stuff like that. By the way, and again, we want to respect what the college presidents are doing at each college, and I'm very sure that they're thinking of ways. I've already heard from some of them that they are looking at ways to create revenue and to cut where it's unnecessary. But, I think we've heard today that, maybe we can get together, on a, little workshop or a little special board meeting, and you can, get some feedback from the trustees on what that future would look like, just in case, we have, tough times up ahead. So with that being said, I do want to give, Trustee Eno, let's really do a round of applause for Trustee Eno and as Chair of Public Affairs and Ledge, because she has been on top of a lot of the budget stuff, and especially that LGBT money that she really helped secure. And you did. So thank you. Can we give her a round of applause? Because it's not easy being Chair of Public Affairs. And also thank you to Trustee Hoffman for also helping us at the state level. But we have some more comments and questions. I'll start over here to the right with Trustee Buelna.
Thank you. So I guess, Chancellor, I'll ask you this question first, then while you think of the answer, you may have it, I'm going to ask a few more questions. But if you can tell us in terms of what your projections are for FTS for 23, 24, 25, 24, 25, 25, 26, that would be helpful in terms of understanding what your expectations as a district's leader. But on page 48, sorry, I have bad vision. So I see under DW Marketing Public Relations, Chancellor, what is, I see we have 2,178,000, and in 22, 23 it was 747. So there were some line items that I thought, so I just wanted to go over them. Do you know what that is?
What, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
On page 48.
So I don't have that in front of me.
Sure. Yeah, the budget, on page 48, there's a few questions in that little section that I have right there. We're spending $2,175,143 on DW Marketing Public Relations. And that's a over $1.8 million increase.
Oh, that's a district-wide, is DW?
Yes.
So that must be, is that our agency of record?
That's what it is, district-wide marketing.
Yeah, that's
and
our agency of
advertising.
record.
Okay, but that seems like that's a $1.8 million increase from the year before.
Right. Do you recall when the board authorized our agency of record, it was up to a particular and not to exceed an amount? That's is the amount that was used.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And that's
thank
all 9 colleges and the district office.
Got it. The framework, thank you. The framework for racial justice last year was 0, and this year is 0. Is there a reason why they're at 0?
Yeah, I think Deborah can answer that.
We have moved those funds since and are in restricted funds. This is the page you're looking at right now is unrestricted.
Huh?
They have been moved to restricted, and there is a page that I could probably tell you where
Okay,
they are.
That's okay, as long as you're telling me it's somewhere else. That's what I wanted to see. I didn't want to see that because it seemed drastic to go to zero.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm
months.
asking. Okay. Same line, HR training and development, we went from 58,000 to, and God knows HR needs it, to 519,000. That seemed like a huge increase. Is there a reason for that increase? I'm in favor of it if it stops our lawsuits, sexual harassment training and all that. Why so much?
So I will say that there are plans in the HR area, and I've talked to Ms. Williams, to get training up and running. So what you're looking at is actual spent and then how much we're setting aside for next year's dollars, for next year's expenses.
Okay.
A lot of it, some of it is open orders, meaning commitments are that we incurred in a prior year, but we still have to pay. This budget comes after speaking with all the budget owners, and this one would be Vice Chancellor Williams' area, and they provide us with their plans of what they're going to do in these line items. So I don't have that in front of me right now, but I can get you what their plans are and how much they're going to
Well,
spend.
the biggest thing I'm looking at, I just went down and said where there's a huge deviance, right? And if you're saying that, because there's other priorities.
That on tap is a plan to hire a training manager. Anyone? HR? Anyone here? Oh. I hate to throw you under the bus, Ms. Williams, sorry.
Oh, no problem. You were doing great, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, the district does not have a training and professional development manager. We are proposing to hire a classified manager to provide training and professional development. One of the things that the state chancellor's office is doing is increasing DEIA and making it a mandate for evaluation. And so every employee will have to be evaluated on their competency, their cultural competency, and their growth in those areas. But if you're not providing people training on those areas, how can you evaluate them on it?
Right.
So we will get with our training manager. We will implement a robust professional development training. And for the first couple of years, there'll be a DEIA focus. But we also have commitments with faculty for evaluation training. This district has been getting away with doing that through ad hoc committees. We also have professional development coordinators at each campus, but no one's coordinating with them at the district level. So we already have a lot of demands and hopes and dreams with this manager position, but we will have it posted once the budget's passed and get started on those initiatives.
Okay. Down under reserve for legal services, and that's that's in workman's comp under operating budget with variety VR expenditures. We have 0 in the previous budgets, then 3 million something. Is WC mean workman's comp?
Yes.
Okay. Where are the districts? We have certain liabilities from our lawsuits. Where are those liabilities considered within the budget? If there's somewhere else, that's all I need to know.
Well, some of them are in the legal office budget. They put it in their budget if they know some things that they're gonna have to pay. And the others are located in the reserve that we have set up.
Okay. So
And the
some-
reserve, one time we had a reserve for workers' comp, a reserve for legal, and a reserve for insurance. But the group of constituents got together to review the district-wide accounts with the amount of dollars that we were spending and decided we should have one reserve rather than having 3, and just take an average amount and set that up, because we were setting up reserves for 3 different categories, which could have been $4 million for each one, like 12 million. But now we have it down to all together, and it's like 4, because sometimes you don't use those reserves, and was taking money away.
so liabilities from lawsuits would come out of the reserve.
It depends on where they were. If it's a lawsuit they know about, it's probably in their budget. If one is anticipated, it might be in their budget, but if it's unanticipated, it goes into the reserve.
Got it. Okay. So my next question is with regard to, so I noticed throughout the budget, because I did a search of HSI funding. So there's the minority funding programs, and Deputy Chancellor Burke looked at it last night, but I did ask the question about a month and a half ago. Where are the HSI funding amounts embedded?
There's a group that has every college listed in all of their programs. You just have to look through each college. Which ones?
And let me just say, I've asked this question before, right? And we can, and all I want is if you can give me the answer later. But here's the concern that I've had constituents mention this. And we get millions and millions. We have a system that's 60% Latino approximately. We get significant amount of HSI funding. And what some of the concern of some of the constituents is that some of the HSI funding that goes into the colleges, which you and I have had this conversation, the colleges handle, that it's not very clear how it's spent. And my biggest question and concern, and I'm going to say it in the very nicest possible way, is that none of the HSI funding be used to cover non-grant specific authorized funding. Okay, now, I see you nodding your head, Ms. Gordon. However, I've also asked if you know that that's not occurring. And I've gotten the answer that no, we don't. So I'm asking in public, if we can get the report in closed session, how is HSI funding being used, and that our audit clearly show that it's only being used for grant authorized specific and not used to cover anyone's general account. You don't need to answer that question right now. I'm asking a question that we receive the report in confidence, because that's a big concern of mine. Trustee Vera, just give me, Bella, one more. So with regard to multilingual services, potentially we have AB 1096 coming up, and we're gonna have another conversation. Chancellor, I don't see additional funding for multilingual services. And maybe we're gonna embed that into the contracts with the unions. But in terms of, do we have space to add multilingual services in terms of counselors, in terms of translators for meetings, in terms of, or are you anticipating it being embedded in here?
Well, it would be embedded within the classified service. There are differentials for bilingual, okay? But we don't have that amongst our faculty. That would have to be something that would be negotiated. It's not within the current negotiations. If that were to be drawn and agreed upon, that we would write a side MOU and would do that. But so I would say it would be embedded within the budget. There's not a set aside.
Right.
For this anticipated work.
And thank you. And what I'm not seeing is translation services, which what I would want to see, a district-wide contract on translation services on an as-needed basis. For instance, for this meeting, you can listen to this meeting in Spanish if you know. Vice Chancellor Litz has been awesome in returning phone calls on that. But if you're in Mandarin, if you're in Farsi, if you're in different languages, maybe you answer that question. Okay, so I'll leave it there. I just think we need a further conversation on how we handle multilingualism, because it's just not translation, it's communication. Again, I'm always in court and I've seen translators come in Turkish for two translators, one's online, one's in person, handling complex litigation, and they're able to do it fine, right? But what I've seen at our district, what we've been told and we discussed in the ad hoc, is that folks sometimes can't get services at the window in counseling, which is affecting enrollments. But my biggest concern is that we don't have a budget item to help them real time, right? If you're a counselor at, I'm not gonna pick on ELAC, I was gonna pick on ELAC. I'll pick on Jim, on West Los Angeles College. You're like, why me? and you don't have anyone to help you, how do you help that student? Chancellor?
Well, I mean, it's not embedded in the budget there. But as I mentioned, the classified service, our frontline staff, admissions of records, financial aid, other people who deal with the public directly, there is, as I understand, bilingual, differential, multiple languages. Not all colleges have the same capabilities, or not all colleges have the same types of students that attend or want services in those colleges. So it's some of it is hit and miss, and with respect to the kind of services. So I'm not going to suggest that the colleges have a ready-made, just-in-time linguistic service for that particular. That doesn't happen.
But we can. I'm just saying we can. We have the ability. It occurs in other government institutions, but I've said it, and we know that it can occur. It's not necessarily that expensive. It occurs. So I asked a question, Chancellor, in terms of FTS. Do you have what we should expect as a Board of Trustee, what you're anticipating FTS 2023, 24, 25, and 25, 26?
Well, I'll give you percentages. I think that's one, then we can translate those to numbers there. We hit the end of 23 at 7%. If the enrollments hold and our college presidents and our teams are doing a pretty good job, and I would guesstimate conservatively that we'll hit by the end of this year, and this will be very good news, almost 50% growth from that, or about 12% growth at the end of next year. So you add that, and then the following year, I'll be conservative, because if you want to go on a conservative track, there might be a recession. There could be other things that come up. No one can prognosticate what happens 2 years from now. But let's say that's 6%. So you got 7, 12, and 6. So that will get us to close to 25% from a year ago, where we were at, and that will get us close to 100,000 FTES at the end of 25, 26. So that'll put us about 7,000 FTES lower, assuming all revenue streams stay the same. And if we're funded at 5,000, that will be about a $35 million shortfall from where we were at in 16, 17. All things being the same, but we have other revenue sources that come in. So I think that $35 million would be more than made up from other sources. So we should be, I think, if this holds, at least in a position to be relatively stable.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, I would like to close the public hearing. I have a motion, a second. Oh, I'll close the public hearing. At this time, I am going to request that I have a motion and a second to adopt the LACCD 2023-2024 final budget.
I will
Before
move.
you-
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I will not
Before
move.
you do that, we need to read it into the minutes in Appendix F of the final budget, page 199. A column header contained an incorrect COLA rate. This typo will be adjusted in the final printing.
Got it. Okay, was
Thank you.
read into the record. Can I have a motion?
I will move to approve to adopt the final budget for 2023, 2024.
Thank you, Trustee Hoffman. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President Henderson. I think we've had enough discussion. And thank you. Roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona,
No.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman.
Yes.
Trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, budget passes. Thank you all so much. Next, we have a combined consent calendar. Board members, we now have for our review, the combined consent calendars for items I-1 through U-8. These items include consent calendars for HR, academic affairs, student services, budget and finance, and business and facilities. So much. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
Moved by Henderson, second by Eno. All right, roll call, please.
Student-
Trustee, and I have one, after I'm comfortable voting for it, but.
Oh,
I have
okay,
one
no,
comment
let's
after-
just-
One
let's-
comment after,
Okay.
go with the vote.
Yeah, no, let's do that. I apologize. Let's go ahead and see if there's any items that have questions or people would like to pull. Go ahead, Trustee Vettis.
I'm not interested in pulling the item, but I did want to have clearer and better understanding. And I say this only because during the meetings we had at the athletic ad hoc committee, there was a number of questions raised about officiating, and I know we have a number of ratifications here that are listed for several colleges. And I think generally speaking, ratification is not like sort of the approach we'd like to take on a more or less basis moving forward. But can somebody sort of explain this? And are we in need of a better system? I think.
Trustee Vettis, what item number is that?
It's on the consent calendar. There's several items here, and it's item T, business special grant and funding other agreements. It is item everything that says ratify athletic officiating.
Okay, I see what you're
So it's
saying.
item
T1
2
through T21?
No, they're interspersed. So 2, 6, maybe a couple of others in there. So I take them together. Like I said, I'm not going to oppose them because I think their service is already rendered. But just for the public consumption, because I think one of the things about officiating is it tends to you pay as you use it, as opposed to most of, and I think the way the officials are, nobody's going to want to wait for a check in the mail, right? Kind of thing. So do we have a better system to look at, or what are we doing here just to make me feel comfortable that we're addressing the concerns as easy and as fast as we can? This is kind of one of those things where if the power of 9 or 8 can be utilized to create a system that's more helpful and easier for the athletic directors and coaches to sort of deal with the officiating questions, can we? But if not, like I said, we have a number, and I couldn't exactly tell if this is a voucher system. I don't know if it's better or not. I know there's a few endeavors out there, but I've heard it for more than once, and I know I've had a couple conversations with some presidents on it. But are we doing the best we can? And if there is something that we need to do as a board to make this easier, simpler, clearer, to facilitate this activity. So that's been about officiating.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Deputy Chancellor, you look like you're moving.
We're going to work on a district-wide contract for that to resolve the issue.
Is this essentially, I don't know how many people are specialists in this area, but if it's a district-wide contract, because coming back to it in this way doesn't feel like the best possible approach. If we can find something that's ahead, I in one sense, understand our accounting concerns about putting money for stuff you don't know is going to happen totally. But if there's a vendor that we can look at that's a consistent vendor to use, I think it makes a lot of sense, because coming up like this, and there are nice round numbers here. So I'm assuming all this is estimations as well, as opposed to what the actual cost of things are. But that's if it's a district-wide contract, I think that'll handle my future concerns. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other items?
I just had a comment on one.
Sure.
I just wanted to thank.
Can you state the item?
Oh, yes, it's P3. I just wanted to thank President Dorado and his team to make sure that the HVAC worked and air conditioning was good to go for the staff development day. Apparently in the past, it's been an issue, so I saw it on here and I just want to say thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So we do have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on any items? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote.
Yes.
Trustee Buona,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Okay, great. Next is, can I have a motion and a second to adopt business items V1 through V11?
So moved.
Moved by Henderson,
Second.
seconded by Eno. Any further discussions? Okay, if not, may I have roll call, please?
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote.
Yes.
Trustee Buona, trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Next is special request for payment. W1, authorized special request for payment at LACD College for $15,000 and 657. May I have a motion and a second on item W1?
So moved.
Moved by Henderson,
Second.
second by Eno. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Boulna,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Okay, same thing on item W2, authorize special request for payment for LA Pierce College. Total cost is $5,000. Can I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Moved by Henderson, second by Eno. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Boulna,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Okay, same thing on W3, authorize special request for payment at LA Trade Tech for $30,000, $677,209. May I have a motion and a second on item W3?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Henderson, seconded by Eno. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Boulna,
Yes.
trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Vettis.
Yes.
Okay, next is facilities items X1 through X16. Can I have a motion and a second to adopt the facility items? Moved by Buelna.
Question on one item.
Huh?
Question on one item.
Oh, of
Second.
course, yeah. Seconded by Eno. Okay, are there any questions? Trustee Vettis?
Yes, item number 4, it's the professional services for the structural evaluation. Is that, I know, I think we're going to have this item later in closed as well, not this item, but related in closed session. I don't really have a question about the process, but what the standard, like, I guess let me ask this. Can you explain this contractor? Where do they fit within the system? How often do we do structural evaluations? This is a special request here, but have we done this for leases in the past? 1, and then 2, does it cover essentially all the buildings that we occupy?
No, the structural report actually includes a tier 1 and a tier 2 report. They're typically standard for educational assessments on structural, building concerns, new leases, buildings that you've purchased. That's something that goes across the state of California. The structural engineer that's actually provided this report, we have worked with before. They're on our bench, and they're very familiar with doing this work. This is specific to Pacoima and that lease site. Not out of the norm. I haven't done it in my 4-year tenure here, but it's kind of a routine practice to assess, the current conditions of your facility or potential occupancy of a building.
Okay, so
And trustee, I'm sorry, trustee Vettis, I did want to just point out for the board's information, the report that was prepared is item X3. So those 2 items are related.
sorry, I didn't, you said item S3?
X.
X is
Okay.
the report itself that will be submitted to
Right.
DSA.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to sort of assess is how often do we do this? What are the trigger points to do this? Do we do it, for example, like, I know we have a number of emergency housing providers. Did we, before we enter into any agreements, did we do any structural reports to ensure that students have the same expectation that they would have here?
No, we didn't do that. But typically, a structural report or an assessment, ADA assessment, usually happens from a field visit from a DSA field trip inspector. And those inspectors typically just, they walk sites, they see sites, and they say, we don't have an A number, which is a certification number in a building, and they'll ask us about it. And this is a step that we're using to get an exemption or waiver, so we don't have to have a Field Act compliant.
Okay, so, but to ask the question, like, for example, we should have one on this building that we're in currently.
Well, we don't have students here, so this is.
Anywhere we have
Yeah.
students. we have
Yeah,
it.
trustee Vettis, so under the education code, if any of our facilities are going to be used for school purposes, we're legally required to comply with the Field Act. And that essentially means that we work with the Department of State Architect to certify our buildings. In this instance, the request is to seek an exemption so that the district does not have to comply with the Field Act. So this is a very unique situation where the building will be used for educational purposes for students, but without complying with the Field Act.
Okay. Certainly understand that. I'm just trying to understand the sort of widespread prevalence of when we choose to and when we don't. I know last year we spent a lot of time discussing pre-1970s.
Yes.
With the pre-1970s, I mean, I guess I'm asking a question I might already know the answer to, but we still have students that are in those facilities. So how do we rectify that? And like I said, the deep down that happens later here, I understand, and that's in a different conversation. But I just want to know when we trigger and what becomes the standard for triggering these analysis. And I know, for example, we just announced we have housing going out on Friday. I mean, is that part of a requirement to also have this kind of structure? If it's not a built to suit, but some other kind of, I mean, we've talked about multiple concepts in the housing conversation. I just want to understand the prevalence of this kind of approach.
The phrase, I'm so sorry, Dr. Smith. The phrase in the education code, Trustee Vettis, is school buildings. If we are going to use any building as a school building, we have to work with DSA. The district has done an exceptional job of working with DSA. It may have appeared seamless because DSA is receiving plans and providing approvals, and our construction companies and our PMO are working with DSA regularly. This is very unique because we are specifically trying to get an exemption from having to provide DSA any construction plans or having to comply with the Field Act. So this is a very unique scenario, but the requirement applies to any school building under the education code.
What about the Southgate Center?
So we actually have a waiver at Southgate Center as well. So typically what happens is all of our pre-70s buildings were grandfathered in because they were built before the Field Act was implemented. And so we have agreed not to make any improvements in those buildings. So there'll no coring through walls, no major modifications, simple improvements is what DSA has allowed us to do in those buildings. And that was the impetus for us to go after an opportunity to provide over $1 billion worth of improvements in those buildings because we've avoided doing anything in those buildings since they were built. So that's one of that's the difference there. With the Division of the State Architect, we also have the option with housing to consider if we want to have assembly space and we want to have classrooms. My recommendation is to make sure they're Field Act compliant because we don't know what we're going to do with those buildings in 20 or 25 years. We may make changes, and so that gives us the flexibility of our building space. If we choose not to, you cannot have assembly space or a classroom or an online class or a hybrid flex classroom. You can't have a welcome day or any event in that facility if we've determined that we're going to go through the city or county for building permit. So that's going to be the difference. DSA just enforces code. They're not a code enforcement agency. They're just basically an agency that's that we use for approval process. They won't enforce code, but they'll let you know if you're compliant or not. And that's when you get your certification or you're closed without certification.
Dr. Smith, if I could just interrupt you for a second, because that's really fascinating. So we are basically code enforcing ourselves, reaching out to DSA. They're not code enforcement, but we've called code enforcement on ourselves to
We've elected to go through DSA versus local city or county.
We're opting to comply with the education code requirement. We had previously advised the board, and this is just general for all school districts and community college districts, that if the buildings are Field Act compliant, there is indemnity for the trustees, but this is the one very unique area in the education code that provides that if a building is not built out compliant and there is an injury as a result of an earthquake, board members or trustees of any school district would be personally liable. So in this instance, in order to ensure we're protecting the board, the application, which again is on item X3, is being submitted to DSA, and DSA may approve it. They may require additional information. If they don't respond at all within 45 days, it's deemed approved, but it's compliance with state law.
And the chasm, what is the chasm in terms of, I'm just going to say this because as we ask for a waiver and we submit this application, I want to understand and at least state for the public, what is the chasm between safety of in this case, the city of Los Angeles approval, which does have code enforcement, which does have building standards as well,
Yes.
and Field Act, and from your assessment, what is sort of the chasm of liability or safety concerns or whatever? I mean, what are some of the things we're sort of trying to understand? Because I think if you've given a certificate of occupancy on the city side of things, there's a reasonable expectation that the building is safe.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm just trying to understand what we've done here and what we're doing with these items that are together to be submitted. What does this mean for us?
Well, I think it follows our due diligence process to ensure that we're, a new building, new lease agreement that we're going to enter into for 3 years or more. This is pretty much that process we're following. If it were a 5-year lease, we would have done this prior to bringing this item, and you would have had a lot of the information that is coming to you now in pieces. It would have been as a package. And so ultimately, it's to ensure the safety of the occupants and the community. Ultimately, we want to make sure that there's an opportunity for egress. It's for people to be able to exit the building if a major seismic event happens. And so this is just ensuring that we have that. It's a waiver that we can get directly from DSA. DSA doesn't have a form or actual formal process. It is us going to them and asking for them to review this and to actually waive any Field Act requirement because it's a short-term lease. It's only 3 years.
And just to add to that, Trustee Vettis, generally for a commercial building, the standards for safety are significantly different than for a public entity. Public entities are required to provide public access, safety, and they are very different for an educational institution, which is why there's additional requirements for the district that a private commercial tenant would not have had to comply with.
So, and just to get this straight in my head, like the building we're in today
Yes.
is not a school building?
No.
No.
Okay. When we make a decision to hold, like our ceremonies here for students or when we've talked about, our tenure, like we used to have our 10-year celebration here, those are not school activities.
That's an activity. It's not considered a school building because it's not a learning place. So there's no teaching and education going here, and you don't have that rapid change in classes. So you have a singular event, which can happen at any meeting place.
And I'm asking that because I'm also thinking about housing and I'm thinking about other kinds of things. If there's not a seminar room, a teaching space, then it's a different standard, which, like I said, for the public, it's still a safe standard.
Yes.
And it's still like this building, I'm assuming went through the city approval process
Yes.
to, earn a certificate of occupancy. So, okay.
Yes.
All right. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a couple more questions on this? So what about Vandycamp?
VDK actually went through DSA certification. It's a certified building.
All right, but Southgate did not.
Well, Southgate's an existing facility. And so we were actually occupying there before we actually implemented any waivers or anything. That we were there for several years. So we've gone back and we've done assessments and we've renegotiated leases over several terms with a variety of owners. And we also have an ADA transition plan there. So, and at this point, Vandycamp we're less than a year away from transitioning out
No,
from
I
that
get
building,
that.
but that building has a waiver.
Okay, but
And
this is a
trust-
short-term lease. My understanding is that if it's a short-term lease, not on, we didn't build it, it's not our building, we would have the option to go through the city or DSA. DSA takes a very long time.
DSA does
Trust-
take a very long time for new construction. For existing, I don't think this is one of those long lengthy processes based on this report. And the level of detail there, I don't think that that'll be a problem for them. Seeing, I've been experienced with other waivers and other facilities. I just don't think that's an issue because the building was built in 2015. And that was the last time it had certificate of occupancy.
Okay,
And
thank you,
trustee
Dr.
Hoffman, I just wanted to also add, the education code requires DSA's response within 45 days. So it is going to be a much shorter time period. And then just a reminder that over the last several years, I know Dr. Smith's team has been working diligently to close out any projects that, or to receive the certification of any closed out projects that weren't certified, because we want to be able to ensure that the trustees are fully protected in case there is an earthquake or any allegations that we weren't diligent. So they've gone from hundreds of projects that were not certified to less than a handful, and we want to continue on a going forward basis to make sure we have DSA clearance and approval for the board's protection.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Trustee Warner?
With regard to personal liability, is it just the trustees that share that liability, or is it also senior management if there was a lawsuit?
In this particular section with the exemption, district employees could potentially also face personal liability, as well as trustees.
Just to be very clear, when we mean personal liability, we mean that the district would probably be precluded from, if there was $1 million lawsuit, that means we as individuals and some senior management would be sued in our personal capacity without using district resources to pay those lawsuits amounts. Is that correct or incorrect?
That is likely correct. Generally, public officials acting within the scope of their duties are legally entitled to defense and indemnity. This is the only area of law that specifically carves out personal liabilities for board members who do not comply with the Field Act in school buildings.
And senior management.
And this, for the exemption, it does include reference to senior management as well, to public employees as well.
In terms of, and let's just say, for instance, if there was a vote 4-3, some board members decided to vote, we're going to take on that personal liability. Do board members who vote no, are they excluded from that liability, or everyone's thrown in the pool?
It would certainly be a defense if there were an action brought under this section. If that were the case, but there is no case directly on point. We have looked into that issue, and we don't have any law that interprets whether the entire board or individual board members would be held liable. It refers to the board in the statutory language.
Thank you.
Yeah,
What
Trustee
about
Hoffman?
Sunland Tahunga?
Uh,
Are we vacating that site?
Actually, we're still there. I know Sunland Tahunga, we do have a waiver from DSA based on a field trip inspection. They assessed that we were within compliance, and ADA was a concern at one point, but that one has an exemption as well.
Okay, so we have a waiver on that one.
Yeah.
So what are we voting on right here? To apply for a waiver? What is
No,
this?
so what you're going to be voting on, an X3 and X4. X3 is the authorization of the submission of the structural report. And then X4 is actually professional services that we use the engineer to do the report. And then I actually have something on X3. The report linked to this item omitted Appendix E. We have now updated the report to include Appendix E, and copies are available for the public. And they will be.
It is, you are voting on X3 as a board. The only way that we can apply, the only way the district can apply for a waiver is if the board, the governing board, submits the report on X3. So by approving the submission of the report on X3, the board is applying for the waiver.
Okay, Thank you all. Appreciate the questions. We'll go ahead and take, well, actually, we did a motion and second for X1 through X16. Roll call, please. Huh?
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona, trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez, trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno, trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Veras.
Yes. Okay, motion passed. Thank you all so much. Next is matters requiring a supermajority vote, which is 6 affirmative votes. And this is regarding the emergency resolution for the fine arts water damage at Harbor College to ratify the okay, so moved by Buona, seconded by Eno. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona, trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez,
Yes.
trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Veras.
Okay, same thing on item Y2, emergency resolution for Southwest College. Have a motion and a second. Moved by Henderson,
Second.
seconded by Eno. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Student trustee Cordova's advisory vote,
Yes.
trustee Buona, trustee Henderson,
Yes.
trustee Hernandez, trustee Hoffman,
Yes.
trustee Eno,
Yes.
trustee Vella,
Yes.
trustee Veras.
Yes.
Okay, next is item Z, which are notice, reports, and informatives. So there's Z1 through 4. One is a notice for approval of board policies, chapter 3. Chancellor, can you take over these?
First reads for members of the board's consideration. Board policy 3440 deals with service animals. You see the change is highlighted in red there. And then the other board policy that we're dealing with, first read, deals with our sexual and other assaults on campus. And you see the changes in red there. So that's for your consideration. If there are no changes, we'll bring this back a month from now.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, trustee Hoffman?
On the sexual and other assault on campus, why are these changes and where did this template come from? Like, where's the language from?
Let me ask if there's any,
Like, who revised this policy?
did our general counsel or human resources?
We
I think that-
reviewed it. ODI worked on this. It is the league's template. I don't
Okay.
know if either Ms. Williams or Ms. Mason are there, but legal did review it and we do not have any concerns with it, but it's from the league and it went through ODI.
All right.
I don't have a whole lot to add. We start with the league template. We have a committee that reviews them all. OGC has a member on that committee, and then we give them to the chancellor for review, and he puts them on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Trustee Buona?
I do have, not that I think, I do have a problem. I mean, let me just say, ODI, OGC, state chancellor, when we're constantly referring to the league, I know Chancellor Hoffman, President Hoffman of the league is a nonprofit entity. They're not a government entity. They're not the Attorney General. They're not the state chancellor. They're an advisory council. So I'm not sure why at every level we're asking for the league's opinion on one of these legal. They're not a responsible entity.
Dr. Bulla, let me respond. The league has a contract service through Lieber, Cassidy, and Whitmore that reviews these policies. So when we say the league, it's really short for the league's legal entity that they contract with for statewide community college services. So this is really Lieber, Cassidy.
So I understand,
Yeah.
I understand that. Actually, I
service
didn't know
report.
that. I'm glad you clarified that in public. But Lieber Cassidy is a law firm. They're a law firm. Every 10 attorneys, 10, unless it's the state chancellor's office or the attorney general's office, they're simply a law firm. You can get probably another law firm to give another opinion. I think to constantly refer to the league, they're just not a government entity. So I think I do have a problem with that constant reference to the league. They're not.
And Trustee Buena, the Office of General Counsel does agree with the concept that there are one set of boilerplate policies that are drafted by the league. In some instances, they're appropriate for the district. In others, they are not, because they make no distinction between the size of the district, a small community college district in the Central Valley versus LACCD, the largest community college district, or a district that has an office of general counsel versus a small district that does not. So we do not, as a matter of practice, simply adopt it wholesale, and we no longer necessarily use LACCD to advise us on that. So we are careful to make sure they're tailored towards the district, and these two proposed policies are.
Right. I just want to make it very clear, we're under no obligation to accept either ACC, the league, CCT, whatever. The only obligation we have, State Chancellor's office, the Attorney General's office. I mean, I think if we have some questions about legal that we can't answer our own, we should hire LACCD directly if we want to, or ask the State Chancellor's office or the Attorney General. But, you know, I have a problem with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any, did you go through all three of them? 4 of them?
Pardon me. These are our informatives or notification of out-of-state travel. That's, we notify the board before that occurs, and you see the travel that's being planned there for 2 of our colleges and their students for the HBCUs and for the ATE conference. So we notify the board and we notify the public of that. And then the third is the informative, the initial proposal that we are engaged in with Local 99, FCIU. It's a formal notice. And then the item Z4 is the appointment of the personnel, reappointment of a personnel commission and public notice.
It's a public notice. Okay. Any questions on Z? Okay, thank you all. Hearing none. Next, I'll go ahead and go through announcements and indications of future proposed actions by members of the Board of Trustees. I'll bring it to the right with Student Trustee Cordova.
I actually, when I gave my report for the meeting, I included my future proposal as well, because at the last board meeting, we didn't do this part. So I apologize for that. I
Yeah.
kind of already said what we have planned, but I will keep you guys updated on the drives. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Bona?
Yeah, thank you. So at the last board meeting, I mentioned a few things. I mentioned one, that this board is, I'm not going to say never. I mean, Trustee Hoffman has been on the board longer than anyone. Maybe she has heard of a report. We've never received a report on whistleblowers, just never. We have no idea if there's 10,000 whistleblower complaints, 5, we just haven't, right? President Vela, last time you asked that this be moved forward, we haven't received it. The board rule, and we as a board know that it fell apart, you know, once it was tested. I don't know, Chancellor, if the board rule, if another board rule, another sample is forthcoming. I just don't know. I haven't heard. I also requested last time that we consider an audit, an outside independent audit of our internal affairs division. Our internal affairs division has never received an audit. We don't know if internal affairs, if they're meeting their own standards, outside standards. We're just clueless. So in terms of governance, not having any whistleblower report ever, board rule that we know needs to be updated, and an IAD department who's never received an audit. So I'm requesting for the second time that we move on those issues.
Thank you, Trustee Bona. Vice President Eno?
I did forget to report in my Legislative and Public Affairs Committee meeting. We do meet next week at, I think, still 1 to 2:15, and we will be doing an overview of the application process for the new legislative bill cycle. So I invite anyone interested to know how to do that for next Wednesday.
Thank you so much. Vice President Henderson?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Hoffman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Vela. Chancellor, can we look into our policy with regard to student workers? Because now I've heard a few things, and Ms. Echeverry was talking about student tutors. And that's the first I heard that a part-time student cannot be a tutor. I mean, I run a very robust student employment program. I have student tutors. Many of them are not full-time students because oftentimes we can't find tutors to teach or to tutor in some subject areas. So part-time students are able to tutor, they're able to work on campus. Obviously, we try to balance the amount of hours that they work, with the number of units that they're enrolled in. But students that are enrolled at least half-time qualify for federal work study. I don't understand. I've heard from several other employees and college presidents that part-time students are not allowed to be student workers. So if that's an internal policy to LACCD, I would love to take a look at that board policy and change that. If I'm breaking the law in the role that I'm been doing for 27 years, then I need to know that, but I don't think that I am. Because again, we have part-time students and in ed code, it even says that full-time students can work and part-time students can work. They just can't work hours that would qualify them to be part of the classified service. And so we have to be careful about the hours that they work. I mean, my personal belief is that no student really should go over 15 hours, 20 max. But I think that would help solve a lot of the problems that we're having on our campus, not only with tutoring, but with speaking other languages as well. We utilize student workers to help students when we need something translated. Anyway, I just would like you to do a little research on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Trustee Hernandez?
None for me.
Hearing none. Trustee Vettis?
Yeah, I just wanted to note for the board that SB 447, which is essentially the state's modification of the travel ban, has been enrolled to the governor. It has an urgency clause. So I know from the standpoint and purposes, several entities and faculty and students have sort of raised the questions for competitions and process and et cetera. I do understand the governor's given some indication that he would sign it, so it goes into effect right away. But I think we should notice, especially for those kinds of academic competitions and conferences, et cetera, that are taking place. I know it does take a little bit of time to gear up preparation of travel, but it is with the urgency clause. So as soon as the governor signs it, it's at his desk, should go into effect. And I think as we do our notice of preparations in the next month and the next time that we're able to discuss and review travel request, it should be with the knowledge that that the situation has changed.
For President Vela, we will look at that if it moves forward with the signature. The board did put forth a resolution that mirrored some of the travel ban language, so we will adjust, bring that forward at the next.
Thank you so much. I do have a couple of announcements. Both Vice President Henderson and I would like for the budget committee to perhaps have each college present their plan and their budget specifically on kind of where we're at with like perhaps there being a tough years ahead. So each particular college, we would appreciate it. Also, I did want to recognize the presidential search process, and I want to say that the board policy currently is very recognizes the shared governance component, but we do both actually board leadership, myself, Vice President Henderson, and Eno would like to bring to the full board at the next October 4th meeting resolution, solidifying the individual search committees at each college to further put importance on the fact that these committees are very important. Currently, we have invited both the Academic Senate and the American Federation of Teachers, as well as all of the other unions, to look into perhaps any suggestions. This then would be formulated through this resolution and then sent to the Chancellor and to legal counsel. And the board would then have it in front of them at the October 4th meeting. So I really want to thank, again, the leadership of, all of the negotiating teams, also all of the colleges. And I appreciate the feedback on the concern. And so, again, we're going to be looking at this further and continuing to put emphasis on the shared governance component of the college presidential searches. And then next, I do want to, mention, we talked about, so many things today. But one of the things is that, personally as board president, I have really enjoyed the support of all of my colleagues on major big ticket items. But one of the things is that I do want to express the importance of counselors, at LACCD. Counselors do play an essential role assisting our students and navigate a range of academic opportunities, personal challenges, and experiences. Through their professional interactions, our counselors get to know our students personally while supporting each step of their academic journey. Counselors provide critical guidance to ensure that our students achieve their academic goals and objectives. With so many first-generation students at LACCD, counselors make the unfamiliar familiar and build the confidence of our students to provide the support they need. Our counselors are effective listeners who must understand the issues that each student faces. Counselors must consider how students' socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and intersectionality impact their success and achievement. LACCD counselors are warm and they're inviting, and in their demeanor, along with their professional expertise, is key to student success. So the Board of Trustees does support and recognize and appreciate all of the central roles that the counselors play throughout the LACCD, throughout our district, supporting students' emotional and physical well-being that fuels their academic achievement. And I'm really grateful to have as a board colleague, a counselor, because she has been extremely important as my leadership team in gathering that input on how important our counselors are. And I'm very confident that we will, be able to have our counselors feel like they're appreciated in the very near future. So thank you all. And if there is no more objection to this meeting is, oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Oh, my God. I thought it was. Well, we still have public comment on items not on the agenda. That's right. Okay. So first off, we have Dr. Christine Wright from Southwest College. Dr. Wright, are you on the Zoom?
It doesn't look like she's on.
She's not? Okay, she did submit a written address to the board. Okay. Next is Karina Paredes. Ms. Paredes, are you here?
She submitted a written public comment.
Oh,
as well.
written public comment too. Okay. And then finally, request to address the board of trustees on regarding closed session agenda items. Anyone?
President Vela, we
Yeah.
just have one hand raised that didn't sign up prior. Angelita Rovero.
Oh yeah, Angelita. Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Rivero.
Let me bring her in right now.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Rovero, if you can unmute.
Good afternoon. Good
afternoon.
afternoon, Chancellor Rodriguez, Trustee President Vela, Vice President Board Trustee Henderson, and all the trustees. I just wanted to chime in and thank you all for your continued support. I teach in Chicano Studies. We have a slew of events coming up for the Latino Chicano Heritage Month, how I pose it. This year will be our second year actually doing it. But I want to thank you for being so supportive along the way, even when I was an adjunct, when I would do events. This year, we're slated to have our 9th annual Dia de los Muertos, 5th annual Floricanto. But for Chicano Latino Heritage Month, I especially want to thank Trustee Henderson, who will be coming to a couple of the events and doing opening remarks, and also to Chancellor Rodriguez. It is great that I have this platform and the opportunity to bring such high caliber people like La Santa Cecilia, Grammy Award winners, the father of Chicano theater, Luis Valdez, to name a few. And I believe I've shared that flyer with you, but I also want to thank my president, Ara Aguiar, for okaying all of my events, and also to the board for also allowing me to use this platform for our Hispanic serving community and to bring such great people to Pierce College so our students have access and have these experiences that probably they wouldn't be able to have elsewhere. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all you do. Ms. Romero, gracias. All right, now I think for sure, if there's no objection, we'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you so much.
So ordered. Thank you.